Welcome to Panther and Cage.
The verdict is in the case that has riveted the nation, the trial of Derek Chauvin. The former Minneapolis police officer was found guilty today of killing George Floyd last May. Jury, 6 whites and 6 black or multiracial, deliberated just 10 hours, and the judge announced the result.
Verdict, count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty.
An expectant crowd erupted in cheers and celebration outside the courthouse in Minneapolis as those verdicts were read in a case as rocked the nation. Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellis spoke minutes later.
I would not call today's verdict justice, however, because justice implies true restoration. But it is accountability, which is the first step towards justice. And now the cause of justice is in your hands. And when I say your hands, I mean the hands of the people of the United States. George Floyd mattered. He was loved by his family and his friends. His death shocked the conscience of our community, our country, the whole world. He was loved by his family and friends. But that isn't why he mattered. He mattered because he was a human being. And there is no way we can turn away from that reality.
Hello. Welcome to Panther and Cage. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I'm your host, Panther. Welcome you here to Panther and Cage 18. What is Panther and Cage, you might ask? Panther and Cage is a vlogcast where we speak on a variety of topics from a unique Afrocentric point of view. It's not just your normal podcast, it's a video vlogcast. It is here where we take advantage of the opportunities to engage weekly in progressive discussions of significance and relevance. And in doing so, we attempt to annihilate the socially accepted, mediocre, and negative narratives that have historically perpetuated social cultural bigotry. You, the audience, though, you are our most important asset. You are encouraged to like and responsibly comment and share on our Panther and Cage live streams or any content that we present through our Panther and Cage Facebook page. We're now streaming to YouTube, although that is actually more personal thing, so we'll be moving to that platform as soon as possible. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome, and I hope that you enjoy. That was Judy Woodruff of the PBS NewsHour reporting the reaction to the long-awaited verdict to the Derek Michael Chauvin trial, which we're going to get to. But before we talk about that, I wanted to pose a few questions, and then I want to make sure everything was streaming okay. If there are any audio issues, someone get in the comments, let me know. I'm going to be trying to see if I can share this actual stream to my personal page. We'll go from there. If you have any questions or anything, go ahead and make comments. I will highlight you if I can identify who you are or see you, and I will address any questions in the middle of this discussion. This is going to be kind of thick tonight because we're going to talk about Bryant. We're going to talk about the Jonathan Petler situation and the Derek Chauvin trial briefly. I was supposed to talk about that last week, but I was not able to get the quality of data regarding the Bryant at the time. and that delayed us streaming. So I always want to try to get you guys the right information so we have a conversation based on the relevant information, not information that's just spewed onto the internet by only conservative media outlets. I try to sift and search through multiple streams and multiple sources regarding the conservative and the liberal platforms, and then anything in between. But I do actually look at some of the things that are posted to social media by the community, because I feel like they are the most important. They're not getting heard, and here is where you can have a voice if that voice is responsible. We do not tolerate racism or any kind of bigotry on this particular podcast. So if you're looking to troll, this is not the place for you. Give me a moment. Let me go ahead and see if I can get in this stream. I do believe I have to refresh it because I keep my catch. I hope that everybody's having a wonderful afternoon, or evening, I should say. It's been a pretty frustrating last 2 weeks. There's been a couple of things that occurred, some positive things that have happened. So hopefully we'll end on a high note tonight. This is going to be a big show dealing with a lot of training and a lot of perceptions regarding law enforcement. We talk about this often, but that's the issue that keeps coming up. So we want to be fair in delivering the information and delivering any assessments. Paige, I hope you're doing all right if you're out there tonight. I know you are. You've got a lot of things going on. If you are watching, most likely you'll be able to get to this page via the Panther and Cage Facebook page, and you go to Panther and Cage, just like it is in the title, and just go ahead and subscribe. Click to follow so that when I stream, it pops into your news feed. I know Sunday night is probably not the best night to stream to your feed, but for right now, until we move to a bigger situation, a bigger platform, we will stream most likely here on Sunday nights. All right, that should be sharing publicly to my personal page, so that those individuals who are watching from my personal page, those community members, are able to look there too. All right. Now, some of the questions I'm going to ask you tonight, I'm going to ask for the maximum interaction. So you guys, this is not something that you will just sit back and wait for me to answer. I'd hope that you participate and give me your opinion, because I do want it to reflect also in the playback what your thoughts are regarding this specific question. Now, in its most basic form, the justice is most often thought of as a protection from wrongdoing. Usually think of the hero standing out front, sometimes saving, so corny to say damsel in distress, that may actually be sexist nowadays. Apologize for that if you do take offense to that. But we think of a protector. We often think of a hero protecting children, protecting the innocent. It is that understanding that the greater portion of America sees the justice system as a system that should protect people from being killed, from being cheated, and being discriminated against. That's why police in America are receiving an abundance of unnecessary calls that lead to a backup of our judicial system. The justice system presents and promotes itself to be thought of in that way. And I mean a system that protects people from being killed, cheated, and discriminated against. It claims to have that history and touts that it was designed that way. I mean, take a look to the image to my left. Come on, everybody. It's we the people. Our constitutional commitment to freedom stems from a belief that the inherent equality of all human beings, it is the standard of liberty. Does anyone in the comment section, or anyone viewing in the Panther and Cage viewing audience tonight disagree with that? If you do, I really would like to see, go ahead and put it in the comments. I just want to share your opinion on that. It's very important that this show, we get your opinion about what does justice mean to you? What do you think it means for other Americans? I'll ask that question again. Our constitutional commitment to freedom stems from the belief in the inherent equality of all human beings. It is the standard of liberty. Tell me, I would like for the audience to tell me what you think in regard to what does the justice system mean to you, and what do you think it means to other Americans? I want to kind of wait 5 minutes, but this is going to be a long show. Not really. I don't know. We'll try to see if we can get through it. Just depends on the interaction. Some nights it'll be an hour if we don't have any interaction, and it can be 2 hours if we have interaction. Either way, the idea is to always come up with tangible solutions to some of the issues that we're having. We come up with key factors to racial profiling. We come up with issues dealing with officer discretion. What is quoted by someone else's profile by proxy. And we've also dealt with some of the historic racism within the social or referral to the social structure or the social order of the past. So we've dealt with a couple of things, and this is just merely by having a conversation. So if you do choose to answer that question, go ahead and put that in the comment section. But I believe that we all pretty much probably have the same idea of what justice means and what the justice system means to us as Americans. So most people will say that it does represent an equality and a freedom for Americans that is not felt or heard worldwide. And if that's true, then it truly means, it truly speaks when we have to ask, why does it all too often fail to be protective of people of color? You want to answer that question? Why does it, in lieu of being protective, be more corrective for people of color? Now, I know that those are very deep questions, and I'm going to sit here and I'm kind of trying to see if I can find out if anybody out there is willing to become a bit more interactive tonight, specifically about this particular subject, at least. But for months now, Cage and I have gone to great lengths to uncover specific points about history that has had a direct impact upon the justice system today. We obviously know that there is a hole in the blindfold of Lady Justice, which affects how the scales of justice are balanced. And we should be able to see why. Although often many people don't. So, and we know this because they love to use statistics, you know, and I know that everyone loves statistics. Well, I don't justify statistics, and I'm gonna tell you why a little bit later. But since, you know, everyone knows people who tend to fall back on the statistics, and they love the statistics, and they use them to just legitimize this whole concept. You know, I wonder. I was looking up a statistic the other day, and it said that 46% of the police departments instituted the chokehold bans. Then I got to ask the question: do we really want to talk about why that is? Here's another question. Did anyone in the Panther and Cage viewing audience tonight tell me what is wrong with the employment of police body cameras? And why we meet such resistance when we talk about, you know, the deployment, the unequivocal employment of police body cameras. And don't anyone, Don't you dare get in there and give me that old Wayne Ivy privacy excuse. We talked about that on a previous Panther and Cage. You do not need to go down that road wasting time, right? You do not need to go down that road again. But I genuinely do really want to know the answers to these questions. So at any time, if you can refer back to the question and just let me know you're answering that question. If you choose to think about it, because I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you can think about the answer and what it really means to you, that's a deep, introspective question. And I say it's only deep because you and I both know, we all know, that there's a disparity in the justice system when it comes to people of color. It always has. We'll discuss that at another Panther and Cage, which is why I need you to answer the questions, because we'll be using some of those responses to go ahead and look into the perspectives that shape America and the U.S. justice system today. The reason being is because of the influence that they can have on protecting the nation's citizens too. So I wanna know if my law enforcement supporters, I know there are plenty of law enforcement supporters out there, are against why they're against body cameras, other than that, like I said, the Wayne Ivy excuse. I want to know because it's directly associated with police reform. Is it because it's directly associated with police reform? I just want to know. I really want to get the legitimate answers, so I don't do the speaking for you or make an assumption like many other people who have shows and are on national platforms, and they're speaking out of some other orifice other than their mouth. So, what do you, the viewing audience, believe about employing stricter use of force standards and policies? Floor is always open. I'll be looking back even after the video is completed, and I'll be looking to see what the responses are. We'll probably have a conversation about it on another show. Hopefully, like I said, if the responses are responsible. We're hitting on some tough issues, I understand, and some tough questions to talk about tonight. Just to jump ahead, I want to express that I know that there are those out there who are worried about these being preludes to abolishing the police. I feel those concerns. I understand. I get it. In fact, I know that so many people are fearing that abolishment of the police. They've expressed that, and they feel that statistics reveal that even in the places where all that reform was employed, such as the employment of body cameras, banning chokeholds, they've been in place for years, that they've had little effect on the number of police killings. I know that they feel that this is a big waste of time and resources. In fact, a friend of mine sent an article to me explaining that in Minnesota, the crime is spiked. Now, I need everybody to understand. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I read an article that talked about the New York crime in New York increasing and spiking. We have to understand also that there is always going to be a spike in regard to the summertime. So whenever the hot summer months come, for some reason, crime spikes. That's something that I learned after getting into the military. Actually, it was told me before, but I didn't actually learn why until we got into the military. And I kind of saw that some things kind of correlated when it came to the individuals we were opposing overseas. So I hear all that all the time, though, all that opposition. I hear it from the many people who claim to be back in the blue. Give me one moment. All right. Sorry, but that someone was trying to call me. They call me every time. I don't know. They see me on here and they decide to try to call. I can't get into all that right now. The Eighth Amendment is an amendment in the Constitution that occurred as a result of the considerable fears that have been raised regarding the government's ability to misuse its powers to oppress the people. This kind of abuse of power occurred before in England, and seeing as how this was New England or the New World, a constitution was drafted and amended to serve as a limitation upon the United States federal government to impose any unduly harsh penalties on the criminal defendants before and after a conviction, right? Now, in theory, when these reforms, such as the employment of body camera and banning chokeholds, fail to protect the criminal justice system, is supposed to step in and meet that wrongdoing with a punishment that causes the person who committed it to suffer. Now, through that suffering, let's take the concept, through that suffering, the person is able to reflect their actions and come to some sort of revelation about the harm that they caused. There are even cases where perhaps their punishment serves more as a deterrent to others considering committing wrongdoing and warning them, not to behave in the same way. This places much of the burden on, this places most of the burden of justice on the individual. Now, we all have heard the rhetoric all the time about it's the choices that we make. It's the choices that decide our fate. So I gotta ask another question. Does the inequality that is found in the U.S. justice system unfavorably affecting African Americans and people of color influence their beliefs and their convictions? And that's a deep question. I'll put that question in on the Panther and Cage page. Hopefully it filters. I'll try to see if I can filter it to the other section so that you guys can see the question. I should have posed that question in the title, just so everyone sees it. They can get a prelude to what was coming. So let me go ahead and try to see if I can put this in the comment section, because it's important. I need us to, this is going to be one of the questions that will come back up tonight, and it's one of the most important points that I'm making in tonight's broadcast. The reason being is because we just had the Derek Chauvin trial and the conclusion of that trial. Well, not the conclusion, because we're still waiting on sentencing. But we just had the verdict read. And the big question of what is justice keeps popping up. In fact, it popped up to, just want to go ahead and try to check back and see what we can see here. See if I can get the question posted in there. Maybe someone will see it instead of actually having to tune in and listen. I know some people are annoyed with it and like it. And give me a moment here. It's sometimes it likes to run slow and trying to get to certain pages. I do believe if you're in the Let's Talk About It group, you have to click on the StreamYard link. And once you do that, I think it just opens a window and closes one, or opens it, and you have to close it. And once you submit a question to the stream from there, then it allows me to be able to highlight you and put you onto your question onto the stream. Therefore, you don't have to get on live. It's just another way to communicate directly and communicate to others so everyone else can see the questions. I see a lot of live streams on other platforms, and there are questions that are asked, and you have to actually sit and listen, and you're trying to figure out who asked the question. But there's a lot that goes into communication, and we try, instead of meeting face to face and discussing things, we try so hard to replicate and put a computer in front of us and use that to simulate. And it's done so much so that that AI is pushing us forward faster than I believe that we actually desire or we need to be. So just wanted to say that when we put in a question, I'll be trying to monitor this Let's Talk About It group tonight heavily. I know that I met a few people this day before yesterday, And I know that they were told that we would be streaming in that group. And so now that question should be posed. It is posted and it is posted to that group, so we can get back to. And although we had enough time to actually answer any questions, go ahead and see if I can. Oh, no questions there. All right. Now, let me ask another question so we can move on. Does the disparity affecting African Americans and people of color found in the U.S. justice system influence their values regarding the United States of America? That's another question that's going to be extremely important. And we'll be answering that tonight slightly. But like I said, it needs to be interactive. So I want you guys to, to check that out. I'm going to go ahead and post that question in the Let's Talk About It group. That is really where the discussions were going to be relevant. All right. That question is posted. These questions are extremely important questions, everybody. So go ahead and give your answers. Go ahead and give your opinions, even the negative ones. I'm going to take that and use that for subject matter. So I just want us all to think about those questions as we look at the answers, that should have been talked about earlier. That's the point that I just want us to be thinking about tonight as I begin talking about what has been the most important, one of the most important incidents to happen in the history of America, the murder of George Floyd and the final outcome of the Derek Chauvin trial. So, getting ahead of myself. It was Edmund Burke that said the only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I believe that this was also quoted by Thomas Jefferson, which I shall not give him credit because he was a horrible slave-owning president who we've been so misguided in our education that we don't understand that on the back of the nickel is the engraved image of the Monticello plantation, which was a slave plantation that Thomas Jefferson owned. All right. In fact, let me go ahead and go ahead and give you. I know I said it. I want you to see it. Okay. That's right. Monticello plantation. Yep, the Monticello plantation was a tobacco and wheat slave plantation. There's a whole issue surrounding the Jefferson Hemings controversy. And I'm just going to tell you to look it up, look up his mistress, Sally Hemings. That's Sally, S-A-L-L-Y, Hemings, H-E-M-I-N-G-S. Look that up. You can Google that, or you can Google Sally Hemings and Jefferson's The Farm Book. If you type in The Farm Book, I think most of the information you'll find it, right? So I just wanted to highlight that. That's extremely important. We'll be talking about that in a future show. Now that we just addressed that because it's important. The quote, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, was also reported to have been used by the philosopher Plato, who no doubt may have assimilated it from the African conquest of Alexander the Great. Okay. In any case, this is being used here. Go back to the screen for you. The second is running a little slow tonight, but this is being used here to give you the Panther and Cage perspective regarding the tragedy of George Floyd's murder approximately 1 year ago. George Floyd wasn't a threat that actually required 2 or 3 officers pinning down his body while one of them has his knee on George Floyd's neck, like you see here in this picture. If you look at the image, you can see that to the image here, which I have superimposed on. You can see that Derek Chauvin looking down as he continues to have his hand in his pocket. This is an egregiously cruel and unusual. All Derek Chauvin had to do was just move his knee just long enough to let the air or the blood restore consciousness back into this human being. That's it. That's it. It's that simple. Or Chauvin could have put less weight on George Floyd's neck. The reason why I say that, we're not going to talk about tonight, but we will address it in a future show. You can maybe ask him to a freestyle, I might tell you. Chauvin knew, this is the point, Chauvin knew what he was doing. Because the only time that his hand, like you see there in his pocket, the only time that it left his pocket was to grab his OC or pepper spray, to use that upon the crowd that was gathering at the site of what was transpiring. I should add that the part of the crowd was a 9-year-old girl who testified that even she could tell that George Floyd was dying. So if Chauvin had, if he had pepper sprayed this 9-year-old girl, I wonder what he would have to say to her. If you look off to the right of the image, you'll see Officer Tao. Is it Tao? He's working what is called traffic control, and he's then shifting from traffic control, as you can see in the far right image, on here on which would be to my left. He's working traffic control, but yet he shifts to crowd control. And in the interview, in an initial interview, Officer Thao said, or he stated, that George Floyd's ability to breathe or his livelihood was not his direct responsibility. I had a video of that. I lost it. I was looking for about 20 minutes. And I don't know where the video went, but I want to really show you that so you guys don't think I'm just saying this, so you guys will hear it. I wonder what we will learn, though, from that situation. In the very middle image, you can see Officer Tao standing there looking at the crowd while you see what is a liquid that seems to be coming from the next area to the wheel where George Floyd lied on the ground. Now, I watched portions of the trial that I could stomach, okay? And I had to turn away a few times when I learned of, especially like in a situation when I learned of this trail of liquid that you are seeing in the picture. It is allegedly George Floyd urinating on himself. I learned this as I watched one of the people in the crowd testify during the trial, and they said it was a lady, and she said she was an EMT, and that she was her trained medical expertise that she held on a professional opinion that a person losing control over their bodily functions, like urinating on themselves, is a sign that it was a sign that George Floyd was indeed losing consciousness of his life, of his or her life. Person, she was just saying a person, but she was signifying to George Floyd, this was a sign to her that George Floyd was indeed losing his life. I believe a sign that I believe that police officers should be understanding as well, seeing as how after apprehending suspects, attending to suspects' medical needs is some point of priority. Now, this is very contentious. So I'm kind of stumbling over this because I want to make sure that we're clear on this, okay? It's very contentious for these Brevard County residents, as we've just seen videos showing that, hours before Gregory Edwards had his medical needs attended to. I know that's, very controversial statement, but there's a lot that goes into those contributing factors. And we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with the lack of the VA hospitals in the area for Brevard. And I know that there's one in Lake Nona, but if you wanted to use the VA emergency room, you would have to drive all the way to Orlando via 528. But that's a whole different subject for a whole nother time. Getting back to this picture, the third picture there looks like the back end of a very bad joke, and that's sad. How many officers does it take to, but to be fair, I'm sure that this was a difficult situation for everyone there, considering the training that they were utilizing. But that is indeed a part of the problem. When we talk about the availability of training and what kind of training, we're driving down the realm where many of us have never gone before. That is still not to deter the training that could have been the difference maker in this specific situation. We see officers talking about training all the time. It is only when civilians or the taxpayers begin talking about training when you see the most police officers on the national televised stage, like Sheriff Earl Clark, vehemently opposing reform. Many of the public are just as exhausted to find resolutions when the leaders that they need to listen to are blatantly ignoring them or failing to understand that it's on the public. And I've heard many on the ground say, you don't want us marching because there's no justice. You don't want us rioting because there's no justice. And then when we don't get justice, you don't need us to march because, this man is going to jail. That's a problem. It's apparent that they just don't want to see us be on the line with them. And that's a direct quote from somebody on the ground. I hope that you can understand that sentiment. But if you don't understand this, flat out, I'm not gonna cut no, I'm not gonna be sugarcoating this. Flat out, it's cruel and unusual. That image I just had up, cruel and unusual, right? See any comments, so I'm gonna go ahead and move forward, right? On April 20th, 2021, the former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty of murdering George Floyd last May after a jury deliberated for just 10 hours. Guilty of second-degree murder, unintentional second-degree murder causing death without intent by committing a felony. Guilty of third-degree murder perpetrating or causing death by an imminently dangerous act showing a depraved mind. And guilty of second-degree manslaughter. Second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence causing death by unreasonable risk. Chauvin was immediately remanded into custody of the Hennepin County and led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. Chauvin was booked into the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Oak Park Heights, just before 5 p.m. That was a part of an agreement with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and George Chauvin is now reported to be on suicide watch. While many heralded the guilty verdict as a victory in the efforts to combat police brutality, Others suggested that there's still more work to be done. President Biden said that the conviction could serve as a giant step forward in the march towards justice in America, but added that the nation needed to work together to stamp out systemic racism in Mr. Floyd's memory. Now, you saw me hesitate there because there's a lot of things that's going on. There's a quote, there's actually a video. I should have probably gotten that to you tonight with Dr. Umar Johnson talking about what Biden had done and some of the issues that are currently right now facing the African American community. So, yes, I do agree with that statement. I do agree with those questions, and we'll talk about that another time. When we go Biden bashing, I guess. The heads of major police departments across the country acknowledged that justice had been served. Although I personally hold the opinion that justice is not only a guilty verdict, but it's an appropriate prison sentence and legislative police reform that would prevent the abuse of police power in America. It's my personal perspective. That's what I believe justice, in the terms that we're talking about, looks like for African Americans. I'm curious to find out, or a portion of the justice, because I do also believe in reparations. Challenge me, anybody, I dare you. I'm curious to find out what your opinion, though, your specific opinion is about this specific matter. I actually would like for everyone watching to go ahead and put your opinion in the comment section so we can get a real-time reaction as to what you believe that this guilty verdict for Derek Michael Chauvin, what it really means to American society. From here on out. I want to check the Let's Talk About It group to see if anybody's talking in there. Oftentimes they'll make comments and it doesn't show up. So I'm just trying to be thorough. Don't see any comments there. So let's move forward. Michaela Davis, an accounting major at Georgia State University, told Sean Collins of Fox that accountability was served in the courtroom today, not so much justice. Mishki Noor, co-executive director of the Minnesota-based advocacy group called Black Visions Collective, said that true justice would be served only if George was still here with his family, loved ones, and the community. A member of the Minneapolis-based police civil rights organization Reclaim the Block told Sean, true justice looks like this never happening again. And by this, he meant the murder of George Floyd. Okay. There's a slight delay, so work with me here. I've been trying to fix that all night, but tonight wants to be a delay, so I just got to make sure that I'm correct between the different devices that I'm operating currently right now. Now, it is the primary goal on the agenda of social justice objectives for the police killings to stop. This is well within the limits of human ability, according to President Biden, Vice President Harris, and many other social justice activists working together for a compromise. Which brings us to the police reform bill known as HR 7120, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. It was introduced in the House of Representatives on June 8th of 2020. And the bill addresses a wide range of policies and issues regarding police practices and law enforcement accountability. It includes the measures to increase accountability for law enforcement misconduct and to enhance transparency and data collection and to eliminate discriminatory policy practices. It facilitates, or it's intended to facilitate, the federal enforcement of constitutional violations, which are, example, excessive force, excessive use of force by state and local law enforcement. It lowers the criminal intent standard from the willful to knowing or reckless to convict the law enforcement officer for misconduct in the federal prosecution. It limits qualified immunity as a defense to liability in a private civil action against law enforcement officers or state correctional officer, and authorizes the Department of Justice to issue subpoenas in investigations of police departments for the pattern practice of discrimination. Now, I slipped something in there, so I'm hoping we're going to get back to this again. I do remember we're going to get back to this, yeah, because that was an important statement, but I got to keep moving forward, okay? The bill also investigates the police departments, the bill also investigates the National Registry, or creates the National Registry, the National Police Misconduct Registry, to compile data on the complaints and records of police misconduct. It establishes a framework to prevent racial profiling by any federal, state, or local levels. It establishes new recruits, new requirements for the law enforcement officers and agencies, including the report data to use of force incidents. It obtains to obtain the training on implicit bias and racial profiling, and to wear body cameras. Now, as signed into law, we can look at this to be a more extensive reporting in regards to police brutality statistics, which everyone loves so much. It's something that I've never really seen done before in a way where it's, like I said, national registry. And that will actually help because that will more accurately articulate a better understanding of the abuses that we've seen so far. We've seen it get overlooked. We've seen sensationalized by those people who want to create the black on black crime narratives. But basically, this would be, one step closer to more accurately identifying discrimination and fighting systemic racism in the judicial system. Now, I know that Officer Tatum, I'm only going to mention just as once, says that it's BS, or it's trash. I'm not trying to hear him because there's no depth in what he's saying. It's all biased. We need something. And in order to defeat the black on black crime statistics and the black on black crime rhetoric that comes as a form of someone trying to qualify what has been quantified, it creates a narrative where people are acting on their own beliefs. And we know that this is a problem with racial profiling, because when the officer says, I believe I was in danger, I feared for my life, I believe that I was in fear of my life. We see this. Why? Because a black man is a threat. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that a black man with a gun pointed at them isn't a threat. What I'm saying is that you have someone not being aggressive, but carrying a pocket knife, or having picked it up off of the ground because you put them on the ground, shooting them, or if someone's trying to reach in their pocket and pull out their concealed weapons permit because they are, they've taken the time and the liberty to go and acquire a concealed weapons permit, yet they don't have the liberty to be able to show you, which is what it's used for. I mean, Orlando Castillo. Now the bill, like I said, it limits qualified immunity, right? But did you hear what I said? The key factor to that. You can see it now on the screen there, right? The bill limits qualified immunity as a defense to a liability in private civil action against law enforcement officers, state correctional officer, or, but what about the criminal action against the law enforcement officer or state correctional officer? What do y'all think about that? That's how they slide that stuff in there. So if Officer Tatum or former Officer Brandon Tatum or whatever wants to say that it's trash because of that, I agree. I agree to that. But yeah, something needs to be done. So like I said, it's not a solution, the solution, but it is a step in getting a solution. Just checking the comments, making sure that someone's not commenting and I'm not seeing it. Oftentimes I get jump with those comments, whatever, late, and I've already started to move on. So I'm trying to, flow with this because this is supposed to be and intended to be interactive, and I want to get others' opinions about what does justice look like to you. and so that you can get a good, well-rounded view of what does justice look like to other African Americans. And I know that many people are completely invested in avoiding having their illusions destroyed. But this is what is likely to occur when these initiatives are going to be put in play, or if the bill is signed into law is put in play. Statistics that everybody seems to glorify and horrify. We get to it. The statistics that everybody loves to glorify and horrify directly assist in feeding into the negative narrative that created that the problem with America is Black people. Now, I was watching a video earlier last week where Bridget Kelly, the host of a podcast called "See the Thing Is," and she brought up a concept that I've been trying to explain. I just tried to explain it tonight. But I tried to explain it to you 2 other Panther and Cages ago. I know the racial profiling the fourth in the series of racial profiling. I tried to explain this in depth. I think I spent maybe 20 minutes almost talking about this in depth about statistics. Right. So anyways, Bridget Kelly brought up this concept, and it was Panther and Cage 16. Part 3 of racial profiling series, exactly where I talked about it. But the concept she brought up was that statistics are a collection of data of experiences, that we as people need to stop attempting to quantify the things that have been quantified. Okay. I absolutely agree with her 100% with that line, what she was saying. I've tried to explain this to other people many times before, and I just get that blank deer in the headlights look. So if I'm getting that tonight from the audience, good. I want you to let that sink in. Let that, how does what's his name say? Let that sizzle. I think that Bridget Kelly was right. I think she was right on the money when she said it. And it's not like I'm a genius or anything, but like I said, I saw this play out, as well as my fellow analysts who were number crunching the heck out of all the statistical data associated with the violence that was occurring in Afghanistan. There's also the experience that I saw in Iraq, which really awakened me to how hanging on to numbers was highly inaccurate, although there were decisions made off the numbers. I saw a different story. We had a particular area in Iraq that, statistics showed that it was extremely volatile, and statistics were deceptive regarding the actual frequency of the attacks. But looking at them in various different ways, he said that every time that we would enter that particular area, we would get attacked. But however, over the course of time, which we were extended over there, so over the course of time of monitoring that particular area, it became apparent that those attacks were not what the analysis of the statistics were exactly telling us, but that they were actually there was actually a purpose to the attacks. Now that is very vague. I know that some people are probably upset by that. Oh well, but you just got to understand or whatever that as an intelligence analyst, I'm not at liberty to disclose certain specific details surrounding specific missions. So my point is that I learned that statistics require an integral method of data collection. What I told you guys is how you collect the data. And analysis is based specifically upon critically understanding how important that process is, and that the statistical theory is not solid grounds for accurate probability when dealing with human behaviors of organizations or entities that have been categorized through generalizations. Now, rewind that, listen to that again, okay? I'm not gonna say it again, but go listen to it again, right? The statistical theory is too loose of a method of predictability, especially in America when it comes to this issue of Black on Black crime. And I'll just say the statistical research is not solid enough to predict someone's future. If I say that, prove it, all right? Only Tom Hanks can do this through his brilliant figuring of the Fibonacci sequence and the Da Vinci Code. Other than that, I don't think so. All right? So ultimately, what I'm saying is that the statistics, excuse me, it popped back up. It's got a delay. So ultimately, what I'm saying is that the statistics are the result of someone attempting to quantify something complex as experiences. That this quantification is done with the purposes of simplifying that experience or collection of experiences, which is complex. Okay, all of that was just done so they could try to make some sort of sense of critical understanding of which they could not obtain when they attempted to analyze the collective experiences prior to that quantification. Taking a simplification and making the assessment on that simplification is a very risky thing to do. To make a generalization and on a whole people is not only risky, but it is foolish. And we see this all the time when we see racist white supremacists. You know, those racist white supremacist apologists justifying the murder of a black person because the black on black crime theory statistics. Yes, yes. It's important for you to understand that concept. When you start throwing those black on black crime statistics, you are subscribing yourself to white supremacy. You are being a racist apologist. And I say that because I'm simply going to say this before moving forward, because the black on black crime theory statistics doesn't seem to exist for white on white crime theory statistics. So we never talk about that. So therefore, even my African American members in the African American community don't even refer to it as black on black crime. Okay? Don't even refer to it as that. Because the narrative was created. Okay? And that narrative has caused a lot of racism, a lot of racist comments that caused them to formulate other opinions and other ideas based on those racist comments. And yes, it is extremely racist to be quoting black on black crime theory statistics to people who are having a serious conversation. It is a cowardly attempt for them, all those apologists, to seek safety among numbers on an intellectual battlefield where they cannot stand alone in combat. So I have just asked a critical question to my Panther and Cage audience to begin thinking about just what does it all mean? Is a psychological anxiety going to occur when the HR 7120 George Floyd Justice and Policing Act 2020 initiatives when they're put into play? I believe that that's a legitimate question, considering that we are seeing law enforcement officers quitting their jobs and politicians being dragged through the mud because there appears to be that that they can't, endure the mindsets that are being challenged to having their illusions challenged about the people of America. When they have that illusion destroyed. I'm going to check the comments here. I don't see any new comments. Now we're about to get busy, all right? In my personal experience, I found that people who don't live or haven't lived in the Black community, perpetuating the myths about the Black community, that have no basis in morality, actuality, and submit principles oriented to tangible solutions for that specific community. What I'm saying is that there are people who don't even come to the hood and they're always talking about it. I just had a conversation. I didn't even have a conversation. I just happened to catch it as I was watching, as I was rendering one of the videos you're going to see tonight. And individual talked about an area in Cocoa that was Azalea, off of Azalea and Fisk. And that individual talked about, if something's going down, it's because you're associated to it. Well, I have a cousin that used to live on that street, and she got a vehicle shot at. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was sitting in a house. So I guess something, she was doing something wrong. What was wrong? Was she was living in that community? Is that what you're saying is wrong? So there was no basis of logic for this individual to state that. And sometimes I just look at the Titusville crime page and I wonder, this guy, I just simply told him, pick up a book and read it. To be honest with you, man, pick up a book, because wow. And then he said, well, there's someone else joined in and said that he was saying what I said. It's like, You can't make this stuff up. Oh, people who have never really truly experienced systemic problems that is specific to the Black community, weighing in on those problems has proven to be problematic because too often their contributions are immersed in ideologies that are devoid of humanity. All right. And it is these contributions that create the racist tropes that, that only produce a psychosomatic mental disorder. All right. We talked about that, not last week, because we didn't stream last week, but the Panther case before. We talked about that psychosomatic disorder. All right. We talked about the kinds of messages that were being put out there to perpetuate ignorance and cultural bigotry. We talked about the methodologies that can be used to set up appropriate frameworks of logic. We spoke about the intellectual standards and the mental conflictions that, that occur when new information contradicts a person's reality. When we talked about cognitive dissonance, everybody, my Panther and Cage fans, they know what they're talking about. Those Panther and Cage viewers of the audience, the faithfuls. Amber, I don't know if you're in the audience tonight, but I hope you're in there. I hope you've been doing all right. Hope you're out of Facebook jail. Please don't tell me they put you back in Facebook jail. We got to do something. We got to get you a Facebook lawyer or something. Taking a look at the snapshots that you're seeing here to the left, you're seeing responses that I believe was to a Trevor Noah explanation about a comparison that he made about South African apartheid to slavery here in America. Now, we both know that Trevor Noah is pretty well educated about his own country's history and the impact that South African apartheid had upon his people. And in him living through this experience of being Black in America, he makes a comparison in his perspective, and these are the kinds of responses that that occur. Let me go ahead and make this big for you all who don't see this. I don't want you guys to squint. You can see Ryan Hissler state that the African Americans should stop depending on the government to support us. In return, we should not have to worry about so much influence over us. Now, when you apply logic to this, it will take you down a road where you will ultimately see that, if we're to employ this same sort of separatist movement as African American national identity, we will most surely meet resistance. We have in the past. I'm sure we do. It would happen now. But in Ryan Hissler's mind, this is a substantial solution to all of the Black community's problems. And I want you all to understand that there's no logic here, okay? Unless we are attempting to convince African Americans to take that route, knowing that America would react in a xenophobic zeal to that opposition. That's a trick, right? That could be the logic behind him putting that up there. Just that he's trying to trick us into something, right? So next you see Neil Cole's response that, we're angry talking about the killings of children, but it's not the police, it's the Black man killing them. See what I'm saying? So it's us killing our children, right? It's hard to tell what he's specifically talking about, but I'm going to go on. It's easy to blame the government, but we need to start with our own community. We need to take responsibility for our actions. And there are loads of poor white people, but they don't go around shooting kids. Now, he could be alluding to the Black on Black crime theory we were talking about earlier. And I'm hoping everybody's following me. Let me go ahead and see if I can go ahead and highlight where we are on the page. And see if I get my highlighter going. This is where I was on the page. Ugly circle, sorry about that. But yeah, you can see that, and that's what's amazing. That's what's absolutely amazing. And then there's David Teo's response, which is for Black people. All right, what he says: stop crying and get a job. And he says, you're not working, right? Then there's enticement later, right? You're not going to burn nothing down. Come down south. Maybe he was speaking directly to the rioters. I'm just going to, benefit of the doubt here. Maybe he was speaking to the rioters. And next you see Ken Dormandy's fear-driven response, okay? Let me see if I can go ahead and get this instead of it being a pen. Let me see if I can get it. Yeah, I like it. Ken Dormandy's fear-driven response that they want to take over this country. That's what they want to do. The wild, vague comment, all right, could have been referring to any group. It could have been referring to Antifa, Black Lives Matter, Global Network Foundation, the Democrats, or Black African Americans. Who knows? All right. The most direct response of them all was Carla Rose here. Wow. I like the hell out of that. How about black on black crime for the millionth effing time? All right. What did I tell y'all? Now, Carla's response. Carla's, she's somebody's supervisor. All right. Y'all want to talk about how this affects people directly? She's somebody's supervisor, all right? She may be the sole proprietor of Bullet Liner or Tampa Bay. But if you go to that company and you work under her, yeah, then you might have to deal with eventually a couple months down the road, you're going to say she's racist. It's going to be an issue. It's going to be an accusation. And it's because she doesn't realize that she's being a racist apologist. Okay. So my Panther Cage audience, from the time that we started talking about this to this period now, we understand that we're not subscribing to black on black crime statistics because we are not racist apologists. So at this moment, know that you have now evolved. You've evolved from last year this time, okay? Now, all of these responses are examples of what I talked about earlier last week. What I talked about last week when I stated that there were many superficial assumptions that, that were created by an internal bias that resulted from unethical social engineering. When I said that, that there was a lack of discipline within the communications process, this is what I was referring to, everybody, all right? This is what I was referring to. Because the framework of knowledge that these responses were coming from was misinformation. Misinformation that was generated from a simpleton mindset, which does not take into consideration the impact of America's history upon specific communities of color, nor does it take into consideration of the lack of resources that are available to accurately determine that the causes of the specified violence that they are attributing to the black on black crime theory, okay? It's a very loaded concept. We're gonna talk about it, all right? For us right now, I know this is a very loaded concept, and I've yet to have that conversation specifically in regard to the violence, okay, that is occurring in the black community, all right? I was even requested by an entrepreneur within the black community to speak specifically upon why there is so much fervor and anger that the white American kills an African American. But it seems that there's not the presence of the same fervor and anger when a member of the African American community kills another member of the African American community. Elgin, I didn't forget about you. All right, I heard your request. I'm getting to it. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. Triggers being pulled. We haven't even talked about Dante Wright. We still haven't talked about the compromising of intelligence that we talked about what the infiltration of white supremacy would do. We haven't even talked about that and how it directly has impacted situations like Breonna Taylor. Yeah. I don't mean to delay the conversation, Elgin, man. I'm trying to get to it. It's just this is a lot, all right? This conversation has actually been a priority to get to since September of 2020. However, it has been quite difficult to get to that conversation because there's so many different things that are occurring that are currently affecting the African American community. Many of the killings that often fall on this long list that I've been trying to prioritize, but the list grows daily when there's a new killing and it falls right into the lines of controversy, like the Dante Wright shooting. And then there's Adam Toledo. Now with the Dante Wright, we know that gun, taser, come on. everybody's been talking about it. So pretty much, I don't know if we can kind of keep flowing without addressing it. But if someone wants to really go into that in detail, or they really want to talk about that, you're more than welcome. And then we still need to talk, like I said, we still need to talk about the details behind Breonna Taylor, because the trial of one of the officers that is involved in that case is going to be taking center stage soon. So we do need to talk about that, okay? I'm trying to get to it, Elgin, as soon as I can, man. I'm trying to get to it, man. It would often help if everyone would get in here and would actually contribute to the conversation to push us forward. Because what that does is that gives us a measure of what to actually start focusing on when we start interacting or talking with you. Now, here's where it gets thick, right? Get to this. It's absolutely critical that we address the creation of the ghettos in America first, right? Critical that we address how African Americans transition from the living in villages and whole towns like Greenwood and Rosewood via methods like blockbustering, redlining, gentrification into what we hear is termed as the projects. All right, you got to talk about that. We already spoke about sundown towns, right? Sundown towns. Go get it. Go get a copy. Is I gotta explain it. Just do it. We already spoke about sundown towns. We had you know, if y'all paid attention, I know many of our normal Panther and Cage audience members that follow us discerningly, they have seen us talk about many things. But if you've been trying to follow us, you've noticed that I've even tried to talk about the Irish for the last 3 weeks now. The reason being is because I am sure many of you understand that the Irish and the Italian were the first to stay in the ghettos. Now, don't tell me y'all don't remember this, because I'll give you some pop culture so y'all can reference, okay? Don't get a case of amnesia when it comes to Leonardo DiCaprio's Gangs of New York, grossing 193 million worldwide. Yeah, received some considerable criticism when it came to historical accuracy. And I can't tell you how many times some girls have tried to get me to watch these Leonardo DiCaprio movies. I'm done. After The Great Gatsby, I was done. Never again. All right. Although he did play a good role in Django, we'll say that. We have been trying to move in that direction since we talked about slave patrols months ago in Panther and Cage Freestyle 3. I hope that is on the Panther and Cage page. If not, I'll go ahead and post that video soon so you guys can catch that. If you want it, I will post that for you directly and tag you to it so that you can go ahead and see that. We did talk about that in Panther and Cage Freestyle 3 and in Panther and Cage 9. Now, we need for our Panther and Cage audience to understand that we only go as fast as our audience mentally grows. I know that there are some people out there who are so far advanced that they're tired of listening to myself review some of these things that were responsibly taught to them by their grandparents. I get it. I told some of my friends that we're still trying. We're in this newly walking phase, which is an infancy stage, because we have not even talked about the Pan-Africanist movement and its impact upon the Afro-American community. Anyway, it's important just to understand that somehow during this time of Reconstruction in America, the Irish Americans and the Italian Americans moved up the social order, and African Americans were inserted right back at the bottom. And this was it during that time of Reconstruction. Why it was so important to the conversation. I tried to talk about this when we talked about reparations back in July of 2020. Back in July 2020. But it just conveniently gets dropped when the conversation of reparations comes up. There's a reason for it. They're afraid to learn the truth. It gets dropped off somewhere between Black people are brutes and animals and the crack on Black crime. Excuse those colloquialisms there. I know that sometimes it can sound offensive, but I do believe I do have a comment there. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. That's Elgin, ladies and gentlemen. As an entrepreneur here in Brevard County, Guys, go check out his page. You see him. He made the comment. He's in there. So click on his page. Follow him. Like and follow his page or whatever he does. He's a hair. He's a barber basically. So I just want you guys to understand that he started. A lot of racist people say, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. He's been pulling for a while. All right. So go support Black business. Go support this Black entrepreneurship, especially here in Brevard County. Thanks, Elgin. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Now, if you understand the racist tropes, all right, I'll try to get off this real quick, get this banner off here real quick because we got to get to the next one. Now, if you understand the racist tropes that we tried to explain to you back in Panther and Cage 8.5, you'll be able to understand that, the Reconstruction period, that time period covering 1865 to 1985, basically, because we're going to lump Jim Crow right in there with it, all right? So, yeah. Yep. That's roughly 120 years, everybody, of post-emancipation Jim Crow social economic foolery that they have they just want to gloss over it. So I'm telling you, it's not conveniently done. It's done on purpose. They gloss over it because they want to avoid accountability. So they gloss over it, avoiding accountability. And that is a huge problem. Here is the prime example of where you see here, to my left on the image, Joel Azari. He's practicing that passive racism that we talked about regarding being complicit and showing dismissive behavior to the complex social economic problem that's facing African Americans in the country today. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me go ahead and enlarge the image for you. Get this banner off. So, yep, you see it. He says, life is not fair, get over it. Then he hypocritically says, check it out, we can learn from the past, make sure we don't make the same mistakes and move forward. Yeah, read it again. Get over it. We can learn from the past and make sure that we don't make the same mistakes and move forward. How are you going to learn from the past if you don't recite and talk about it? And I'm so sick and tired of these people, whatever, who, let me get on camera real quick. I want you to see my face because this right here, I get so sick and tired of people that talk about this old Morgan Freeman style version of trying to stop racism. Let's be real. Yeah. How do we stop racism? Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. That is so stupid. How do we stop rape? Let's stop talking about it. Let's not talk about what's his name, Eddie Spencer or whatever. What's the guy's name? Spencer Brock, raping a girl behind a dumpster. How do we stop rape? Stop talking about it. That's right. That's how we stop rape. Just stop talking about it. How do we stop child hunger? Stop talking about it. Yeah, that's how we solve that. We stop talking about it. Because then that kid, his stomach's going to get full and, he's going to find a meal to eat. And yeah, all you got to do is just stop talking about hunger. Don't talk about child hunger. Nope. We're going to talk about that, how, like most kids, if school wasn't in, then they wouldn't receive a meal. How breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Talking about a child in developmental. So that's how we solve it, everybody. We stop talking about it. Man, don't ever come in here with that garbage. All right? That special buffoonery. Never. That is garbage. in order to understand racism and get past it, you have to have the uncomfortable conversation. And the only reason why it's uncomfortable is because you never had the conversation. As you start having the conversation, you do become more comfortable. Okay? It's a growing process. Your kids, when you give them math, when you give them anything else, it's uncomfortable at first, right? But you put the nose to the wheels of the grindstone, right? And you keep at it. You start discussing it so we can move past CNN and Fox's black on black crime theory. So you can move beyond all that. Stop talking about it. Let's just be real. Don't ever come in here with that. That is evolution too. Because that statement is extremely dangerous. It's extremely dismissive. And it's worth challenging when someone makes that kind of a statement specifically when we're talking about slavery and apartheid. You see the line over there. Do you see it? That's African American history. That's American history right there. I like to call out the fact that this kind of rhetoric is not used when we're talking about Jewish people. And when we use that kind of logic that, that Joel over here, Joel Azari or whatever is using, we could say the same thing about American history in regard to 9/11 and how our collective remembrance causes certain factions of America to despise all forms of immigration. Imagine that. Immigrants whole stole this land through violence to Native Americans, and they stole the land from the Native Americans, praising a campaign of hatred of immigrants. You see how hypocritical that is? Now, I know I'm being harsh tonight, but I'm just going to keep it real, all right? I have to. You're going to have to grow at some point. If you can't grow beyond this, see you. I told you we were going to move forward without you, all right? You don't want to join and be a part of the solution, we'll leave you. You don't have to be in the conversation. We don't need anyone dragging us, all right? Now, I hope everybody is paying attention and just sees just how crazy this conversation can get. Because we can get off the mark when we keep and fearfully hold on to these mindsets that are riddled with this psychological anxiety I mentioned before about their illusions being destroyed, okay? To all my real fans out there about Cage, I posted a video of which actually conveniently came at the right time with Bruce Lee talking about having no technique. That's where it would apply, King. Yeah, it will. We see it changing now. You see it stopping now. For those people who are really good of heart, it'll stop. For the ones that set and want to be evil, they'll hold on to it. But those, it wasn't meant to stop for those. It wasn't meant to stop for those. Let me go ahead and try to refresh that real quick. Try and get all these comments in here. Yeah, it'll stop. You just have to have that faith. You have to see it. You see some of these races I engage with sometimes, you watch them kind of fold, don't you? The only way they can continue is to continue putting themselves out to be the ignorant, people that they are. The only way. You bring them out, expose them. It's actually a technique. It'll stop, King. Trust me, it's gonna stop. Sorry, it's running kind of slow, everybody. So let's go ahead and get to what is going to be extremely important tonight and the main reason why we're here. So we can cap this out, because I know I've been talking for the most part, but I want to get this message out, get that information out, because it's important. Because as we move forward in conversations, I'm not going to have someone step in and then all of a sudden come back or try to bring us back to Panther and Cage 6.0 and talk about racism doesn't exist. Man, I will boot you off this platform. A 16-year-old girl identified as Bryant okay, was fatally shot by Officer Nicholas Reardon outside of her home after a 911 call was issued or made to help, and that happened Tuesday afternoon, April 20th, 2021.
We turn now to yet another police-involved killing. 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant shot dead by Columbus, Ohio police officer Nicholas Reardon. Tonight, investigators are examining police-worn body camera footage as well as video taken from a neighbor's security camera showing Micaiah appearing to hold a knife and then lunging at someone wearing pink. Officer Reardon fires a burst of deadly shots. We're joined now by ABC's Trevor Old. Thanks so much for joining us, Trevor. What's the latest on the investigation into Micaiah's death?
Thanks for having me, Lindsay. Today we got a few different, more well-rounded views of what happened in this shooting. One of them, that surveillance footage from the neighbor across the street. He was a witness only in hearing the shots, but his security cameras captured the incident as it unfolded. And another video was released by the city police, and those are the dash cam videos from the officers as they arrived on scene. And it is worth noting, Lindsay, that there wasn't a lot of new information revealed by these new videos because the city and the police department took that unprecedented step to release some of the body camera footage within just a few hours after this fatal shooting. And so we have a fairly good understanding of what was seen there as this was playing out, as Micaiah Bryant is seen on that video with a knife in her hand, appearing to lunge at another young girl. And that's when the officer, Nicholas Reardon, opens fire, fires 4 shots. An officer tried to perform CPR, and then she later died at the hospital. The city says they are committed to transparency, they are committed to accountability, and they're going to continue to keep the public informed. For now, though, it seems we've got our hands on those videos. We have a general idea of what happened, but the investigation is going to play out separately to determine whether or not this shooting was justified, Lindsay.
It does seem like there's a real attempt at transparency here, Trevor. What are police saying, though, at this point as far as an explanation?
Well, as part of that police accountability, Lindsay, right now there's very little that the Division of Police can say in regards to this specific shooting. That's because this investigation is being carried out independently by the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, which is an agency under the State Attorney General. So at least so far, there are not a lot of committed answers that the interim police chief could give us about even who called 911 or what started this entire altercation. However, the most pertinent fact and the most pertinent statement likely that the interim chief of police was able to say is in regards to department policy, and that is, if there is a presence of a deadly threat, either toward an officer or toward a third party, that officer is authorized to fire their weapon and they are authorized to use deadly force. Now, it's going to be up to the BCI to determine whether or not that was in fact the case here. It does appear on the video that Micaiah Bryant had that knife, was lunging at another girl, and could possibly have been considered a lethal threat, but that will be up to those independent investigators to decide.
Yeah, still a lot to get into there in that city. Trevor, well, our thanks to you.
Now, Bryant's sister called 911, and we're going to take a listen to the audio because this is going to be very controversial. You're welcome to comment on this. You're welcome to say whatever you like. Kind of jump ahead if you like. We're going to be talking about this in depth, specifically this, and we're going to talk about another case. And I think we will end post with Jonathan Petland. So we'll talk about these. We'll talk about these issues or whatnot. So you're more than welcome to kind of shoot. This is where we can get an off shot, just kind of offshoot on the conversation or whatnot. Say what you like. But this is going to be a discussion about Micaiah Bryant, and I welcome any input here, because this is one where we can speculate a lot. I know it's very controversial, and some people may not like what I'm about to say. But let us take a listen to Bryant's sister who called 911. Let's listen to that 911 call.
911, where is your emergency? Is there an apartment number letter? What's going on? weapon?
We need a police officer here now.
Do you see any weapon?
Officer now.
May I see the weapon?
Now, very chaotic, right? So this 911 call, you can hear her say she stated the address twice. 3171 Legion Lane, Columbus, basically, you know, it's in Ohio. But she stated it was 3171 Legion Lane. She said, get some officers here now. She stated that there were some grown girls. So there's not a lot of information. It's extremely vague. You would have to actually sit and really think about this in order to, you know, in an emergency situation, especially when it says that she called at 4:30 p.m. Officers stated the officers arrived 8 minutes later. 8 minutes for a fight. That's a long time. I've even heard that it was 4 minutes. Regardless, it's in contention, right? So there's a lot of controversy around this. But in the 911 call, she said grown girls. She mentioned stabbing. She also mentioned that they were trying to put their hands on the grandmother. So you could probably think grown girls or whatever. There's probably, you know, young girls and some older girls. There's some fight going on. They're trying to stab some people who live at this particular residence, which is at 3171 Legion Lane, and that they're trying to put hands on the grandmother. So, you know, you got to identify who the family is, right? That's a lot of information to be trying to figure out. I don't think officers get that information when they're on the way to the call. I think they get just the facts, and then they're there to investigate, which is why the police investigation is important. Okay, don't want to be disrespectful to law enforcement when they're trying to conduct a legitimate investigation, right? So this could have been that situation. Now, before we move forward with that information, knowing that the officer may not have had that information, may or may not have, don't know, it's all speculation right here, okay? So we're gonna play the second 911 call, okay? And the reason why I'm playing these 911 calls is because it's important for us to see how a community stands together, right? So let's check this out.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
It's on Legion Lane.
What's the emergency there?
Oh, well, never mind. The police are already out here. Never mind. Thank you.
So what we see is someone who called and they started to talk and tell the police officer what was going on, but they figured that since a law enforcement officer was there, it's okay. Maybe they were going to approach that law enforcement officer and give their version of what was, or they provide a statement. Now, oftentimes this is treated as I've seen officers that push away, they don't want to hear what that witness wants to say. And usually the witness will walk away from the scene of certain, you know, because they try to talk to the officer was rude. I've seen it. Here in Brevard, I've seen it. That person walks away and then the officer comes up to me and asks me for a statement. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I got kids, man. Like, and you really want to ask me, and you had somebody who was right there trying to tell you, you know, and you didn't want to. So here's the lesson, you know, one of the lessons that I feel like, you know, I've tried to talk to other people about law enforcement. Some of the attitudes, you have to lose them. You're a law enforcement officer, you shouldn't even be Blue Lives Matter. It should be neutral, completely objective, all right? Completely objective, all right? And that reason is for situations like this, where someone could be trying to provide that information. Although that may not be the case here. So moving forward, the Columbus Police Department could not say whether that evening, whether Ma'Khia Bryant was the one to call for assistance before she was fatally shot. Police didn't know that, but somehow the media outlet stated that it was her sister. All right. It was not until a Tuesday night press conference that the Columbus Police Department released an edited version of the body camera worn video, or the body camera video worn by the officer who shot Bryant, Nicholas Reardon. Police had not made public the name of the officer at the time of the shooting. So interim police chief, Michael Woods, told reporters that the officer would be pulled off of patrol duty as of the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation is looking into the shooting. The fatal shooting occurred shortly after, before the verdict of the trial of the former Minneapolis police officer who killed George Floyd, Derek Chauvin. was announced. And this is how the stuff just comes in. It rolled in so much that it's just like, you know, like we couldn't even get a chance to breathe. And it was just like, boom, another shooting. All right. The Ma'Khia Bryant shooting quickly drew at least a dozen Black Lives Matter protesters to the scene. Now, these were Black Lives Matter protesters that were on their way to protest for the justice for George Floyd, right? The outlet said that the demonstrators were on their way to the rally downtown Columbus to celebrate Derek Chauvin's guilty verdict in the Minneapolis trial, where the former officer in that case was found guilty of 3 charges, including murder. We talked about that earlier. Now, right from the beginning, this whole thing, everybody, was extremely confusing to keep up with. I was trying to keep up with it. I was watching the verdict. I was getting reactions. I was actually talking to Cage about some things about, you know, this specific question we're asking you tonight. What does American justice look like? You know, something that we talked about because we actually addressed that when we were talking about Second Lieutenant Rosario, when his lawyer gave us the details on a show where he was talking to the Black News Channel, I think, the Black News Network with I can't remember right now. Sunday night, I'm tired. But Marcus Lamont Hill. He talked about them putting the firearm in the seat, and then he actually talked about what justice looked like. So this was something that, you know, he and I had a conversation with. Before we could even get done with that conversation, there was breaking news that, you know, a 16-year-old girl was killed, and the details behind that was not forthcoming immediately. There were lots of emotions that were flying around because of the nature of how it occurred. The report, which I gathered the information from at the time, this information I'm even reading from, was taken, that said that Bryant was taken to a local hospital in critical condition where she later died. However, when you see this video, you'll find this, and actually you're not going to see that video that's going to tell that. There's a third video that I was going to show, and you can hear Ma'Khia Bryant breathing heavily and the breathing dissipating. And anyone who knows and has seen someone die getting shot, it messes you a little bit because when you hear that laborsome breathing, you're powerless. You know, you're powerless to bring them back. And you know they're going. You know they're leaving, and it's just a feeling you can't describe. And it just messed with me thinking about it right now. So I chose not to upload that video and show it because hearing it was traumatic for me. It's not even my daughter. It's not my sister. It's not my mother. You know, but it's jacked up. It's jacked up. So anyway, the police did release a form of an image on an already computer screen of the body cam footage. So apparently it was supposed to be unedited, but it was edited. So.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Hey, get down. Back up. Sure enough, she's right out.
Now that body cam finished. A lot of audio there was crazy. We'll get a better look at it in a second. But I just want to address, some things as this was occurring. So body cam footage of Officer Reardon shows that he was responding, and he was getting out of his patrol car, walked up to the home. As he approached, he did ask what was going on. But less than a second, and I'm telling you, I looked at this thing so many times slow-mo. It's even less than a second. It's less than a second. I mean, literally less than a second. Okay, you can see Bryant assaulting a girl right there in front of Officer Reardon. Right, the girl is falling. There's a girl that's falling back, is what everybody usually see before they even see the girl attacking her. But that's Bryant that's attacking her. Right, the officer don't know that. You don't know who. Even if he heard the 911 call and processed this information and thought about it, it would just be an assessment. It would be an assumption. And he still couldn't do that being a law enforcement officer. Okay, he can't make that assumption. He can't. It's impossible. It's impossible. Because if he does, and then, you know, he probably would have gotten him. This is what you would have heard from the 911 here. Let's just give you a prelude. 911 call said some grown butt girls. They're trying to put their hands, trying to stab us and put their hands on our grandmother. So at this point, if he would have heard that, if he would have done some forward assessments, some forward assumptions, he would have been like, okay, so somebody's there to a house or whatever, and they got a knife, they try to stab the people who live there. So he could have thought in his head, the person who I see with a knife, that's the guilty party. You're not supposed to do that. That's not how you police. You can't. It's impossible. You got to be objective. He has to remain neutral. Okay, he's there to serve the public, and that's all of them. That's everybody. Sometimes police can't even figure out how to deal with the situation, so he'll give you a temporary order. Basically, what he's doing, he's telling you to take it to court. You find it all the time when you have these divorces where they're arguing over the house and who's getting kicked out and everything else. You got those situations. You got to take that to court and hash it out in court. Police officer can't make any decisions one way or the other. You see officers neutral when it comes to domestic violence most of the time. Sometimes I think it's unfair. They make the man leave the house or whatever and then go find a hotel or whatever. And I'm thinking, if both of y'all pay the mortgage, sleep on this side of the house. I mean, you know, they can sleep in the same bed. You sleep on that side, you sleep on that side, hash it out. You know, you may wind up, you know, making up in the middle of the night. Who knows? You know, but all of this leaving and going in the hotel room, no, once he's out of the house, then, you know, now he becomes predatory, becomes that's new meat. That's blood in the water. And all those single female lady sharks, whatever, out there trying to get it, you know? So, like, then you get mad because he, you know, like, come on. It's a bunch of garbage. That's another show. All right. Point is that police officers can't do that. They have to remain neutral. That's how they're supposed to do their job and do it effectively. So anyway, you see this girl fall back, and then she looked like you know, Bryant had changed her mind as to who she was going to stab and moved back to, you know, to this girl in the pink. And the girl based in the pink was falling back. And it's crazy to me because this girl in the pink had a dog and she dropped the dog. So I'm wondering if they're going to treat her like they did Amy Cooper. They're going to take the dog from her because they should. Okay. You come to somebody else's house and, you know, like, I mean, what is this bougie fight? I mean, whoops. Let's not even get into that. Anyways, you do hear, and I want to point this out before we look at the slow motion version of the video, and we look at it slowed down so we can see it for what it is. And we're going to look at the second officer body cam too. All right. So Officer Riordan says, gets down. He says, get down. He said it 3 times as he's pulling out his service weapon, right? The fact that he says get down, it already tells you he didn't have time to de-escalate. So he couldn't say drop the knife, get the knife out your hand, please ma'am, back up, hold up, freeze, put your hands in the air. He couldn't say any of that. But he did say get down 3 times. He was trying to talk to the other girl because he was about to neutralize the threat at that point. He had made in his mind that he was going to shoot her. But shooting her was an issue of contention that we're going to be talking about. I'm just going to tell you ahead of time. Deadly threat. This girl was in the middle of stabbing another girl. So let's get to it. Let's go ahead and check it out so you guys can see it yourself.
Body camera footage of Officer Riordan shows as he, the responding officer, is getting out of his patrol car responding to a commotion on the driveway of this residential home. As Riordan approaches a group of people standing in the driveway, he asks, "What's going on?" Less than a second later, Bryant is seen assaulting a girl in front of the officer. The girl is seen falling back and away from Bryant onto the sidewalk. It initially looked as if Bryant can be seen pushing the girl to the ground. You can see the cell phone on the sidewalk sliding away from the altercation. One man, believed to be the father of Bryant, begins moving in to kick the girl who had fallen on the ground. Bryant at that time had already turned around and was approaching a second girl seen wearing pink. Bryant pursued her against a parked car on the driveway with what appeared to be a knife in her hand. Officer Riordan shouts, "Get down," 3 times as he pulls out his service firearm and shoots in Bryant's direction at least 4 times. The man believed to be Bryant's father at the time can be seen covering his ears in response to the gunshots. Bryant falls to the ground, and the second girl, seen wearing pink, attempts to immediately run away. As Officer Reardon keeps his firearm trained on Bryant's body, he approaches, and it appears to inadvertently cover the body cam. This is a probable attempt to immediately transfer the status of the situation to dispatch. It is hard to make out at this point. Something can be seen close to Bryant lying on the ground, which is assumed to be a knife. Bryant's body appears to be fading and her movements are slowing. One man, believed to be the father, standing off to the side of the driveway, shouts to the officer, "She's just a kid." Officer Reardon then tells Officer Sergei Akpalo and Eric Channel, two other police officers that are arriving on the scene, that Bryant had a knife and was coming at the other girl.
Interim Police Chief Michael Woods said that the officer summoned a medic immediately and began CPR to Bryant. The video shows, or the video ends as the officers on the scene began to treat the young girl. Interim Police Chief Michael Woods also said that the emergency dispatch received a call approximately 4:30. The female caller said the other girls were at the home trying to stab them and put their hands on them. The police officers were dispatched 4 minutes after the call had ended, and they arrived at the home at approximately 4:44 p.m. Columbus police showed the video a second time in slow motion during the Tuesday night's news conference. And Woods said the video shows that Bryant holding a knife as she pushes two girls at the scene. He stated that the police believed that she was attempting to stab both girls during the fight. It's unclear based on the footage that, at what point Bryant gets a hold of the knife. And Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther said that we know based on the footage that the officer took action to protect another young girl in the community, but the family is grieving tonight. So Woods noted under the Columbus Police Department's policy, deadly force can be used against officers who protect themselves or a third person. Woods cautioned the shooting is still very new at that time and that they were still gathering information. City officials said it sought to share body camera footage hours after the shooting for transparency, but they noted that the footage that they shared with the media had been edited and was incomplete. Woods said that the department has to follow Ohio public records, Ohio law on public records before it can share the full video. And he stated that the process should be completed within the and the video released within 24 hours. They would release the other details for their shooting and the officers that were involved. City of Columbus Director Public Safety Ned Pettis told reporters that, and this is the second time I've heard of him, but he had all kinds of issues with Ohio police. Jacob Blake, I believe, was the Casey Goodson, also, I believe. He told reporters as to what happened, and there would be all the information would be released in due time. But he said, "Our city deserves answers. I want answers, but fast. Quick answers don't come at the cost of accurate answers." Okay. Now, the Columbus Police Department handed the shooting investigation over to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, which is a part of the Attorney General's office. And he noted that whether the officer violated the department's standards of use of force rules is a matter that was going to be decided at a later point during the administrative review, and that would be done only by the DCI when they wrapped up their investigation. Mayor Andrew Ginther said that the city would continue to share as much information as possible, as quickly as possible, but not at the cost of the independent investigation by the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. All right. Now, this is where it get ugly, right? Ginther said, that the city, well, no, actually, let's go. News of the police shooting drew protesters from to the Columbus Police Department headquarters, where they chanted for Bryant's name to be called. Of course, say your name, Ma'Khia Bryant, they yelled outside the station. Now, distrust of the police department runs deep, which was evident by the protesting chanting a long list of African Americans who were killed by the police officers. All right. As I stated earlier, hours after Bryant was killed, protests erupted in the area. Activists were participating in the protests believed that they had one of the most violent police departments in the United States. Columbus police were responsible for more Black deaths in the last several years than departments in much larger cities like Los Angeles and Philadelphia. I never read that before, just so you know. So when I stated that, I've heard these names before, or whatever, like, obviously there's a problem, right? It is also responsible for more Black deaths than in Cleveland and Cincinnati. Back in 1988, the U.S. Justice Department investigated the Columbus police and found the patterns of excessive force, false arrests, abuses, and false charges. I even heard about, I think I saw an article where it talked about some police officers bragging about false charges we put. That's kind of crazy. Some of the abuses that we have to deal with here, right? The Columbus City Council President Shannon Hardin said that there really has been a lot of change and there needs to be a lot of reform. We've done more in the last year in terms of police policy than we've done in 30 years combined, but that is not enough, as indicated by the numerous activists who are participating in the protests. They were asking for the U.S. Justice Department to conduct a federal probe. I can see why. Now, after we watch the slow motion footage, right, I want to talk about Bryant's calling, not elaborating on the nature of the threat of the 911 caller. We need to at least understand how calling 911 works. As a community, we have to understand that, okay? So if we're talking about training, we also need like these town halls where we discuss how a 911 call works, what's best, all right? We cannot expect the police officer to know the details of the situation when they arrive late, okay? They are temporary nodes to a judge before they're nodes to a judge, they're temporary nodes to a judge. So we have to recognize them as the enforcement division of the judicial branch of government. Flat out, I've always said that, right? There were only 2 911 calls that we heard, right? And they were received, according to the Columbus Police Department, 2 calls, all these people standing around, all right? All those people that you're gonna see in this video coming up, standing around, but no one can elaborate on the nature of the threat when it comes to calling 911. We as a community have to stand up. Okay, I know we don't want to call 911, but we're gonna be addressing some of that stuff or whatever. Titusville, hopefully we'll be able to get a line of communication where we can talk about this. Because I don't know if that's a problem actually in Titusville, but if it is, I need you to get in the comments. I need you to talk to me about that. I need that to be shown so we can deal with this issue, okay? Because there's a lot of people in North Brevard that are not going to talk to you. They're not going to care. You notice Wayne Ivey is not talking to anybody, okay? They don't care, all right? Flat out. There's some good officers. There's some good deputies. There's some good people working in the Brevard County Sheriff's Department. I'm telling you, Wayne Ivey, and he's got a looming presence and influence, okay? He don't care about Black people. He ain't trying to talk to anybody since 2020. He don't care, all right? That's just flat out. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't need Alton Edmond to say it or whatever. I mean, he should have said it. You should have used that as a political tool in a debate. That would have challenged him to bring his behind up and actually speak. We know his points. We know his talking points. But there's answers that many people wanted to have. Gregory Edwards, there were a lot of answers. There were a lot of things that, you know, he wanted to state that he should have been speaking about. You know, we don't want those answers. So getting back to specifically this, a community need to know how 911 works and what's the best thing to talk about, what's the best thing to say. You know, I'm sure it's going to be clear, be honest, you know, but sometimes when you need to train because you're in an emergency situation or whatever, your mind goes, you go left, your mind goes kind of crazy. You have to get yourself collected together because you're dealing with some stuff, especially if you got somebody that's close to you that's hurt. You're going through some things. You're emotionally high right now, you know, and it's just like some things you're not going to be able to. And I think you're going to see in this video with a woman who could have been going through that, but you kind of get shocked. You got this stuff going on or whatever, so you got to resort back to training. And I'm be honest with you, man, just train it. That's the way it's going to. That's the only way it's going to really work. So we do have to do work too. As a community, we have to step up. I'm not saying that we don't know how to do it. I'm just saying that we have to actually get ourselves, you know, we got to pass this knowledge down. Okay. That's just the only way it's going to work, y'all. And then irresponsible community that I say that if there were two girls that were trying to jump another girl with a knife, the whole community failed. Yeah. I don't even want nobody to try to attempt to be an apologist for that. If it's gonna be some girls fighting in the community or whatever, and y'all want to just finish it, let it be a fair fight. Do not let, you know, that knife and all that stuff, put that stuff down. That's ridiculous, right? There's got to be something to that. I want to talk to you, Willie Taylor, about that too specifically. This been bothering me. I forgot to bring that up when I saw you the other day. But you know, how many people were there? And they had their phones out and they were shouting. I saw the whole thing. You're gonna hear this in the next video. I saw the whole thing. I saw the whole thing. But you saw the whole thing, but you know, what value is it to just watch the whole thing? What value is it to watch a girl get knifed to death? Second, you saw the father, and I felt like as a father, he should have took better control of that situation. I saw him there kicking the girl. Not saying he should or shouldn't have. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is my daughter has a knife, and the police have showed up. I know the climate of America. At some point, put that knife down, because if he sees you as a threat, he may just go for his gun. You know, you see what I'm saying? So I felt like, you know, the father should have taken better control. And sometimes, at the last resort or whatever, your gun owner, your ability to own a gun yourself, whatever, might stop that. Not saying you got to brandish it, not saying you got to pull it out or whatever, but if they know that you know, are legally carrying, they probably gonna come up in there. So at some point, these girls thought that they had some safety, and that's an issue that needs to be talked about in the Black community, whatever. Definitely about, you know, arming yourself, using your Second Amendment rights. Now, Dad had all the reason in the world after his daughter was shot, but he didn't have the insight for the worst possible outcome. Fathers out there, and I give fatherly advice all the time for the mistakes that I made, and I learned from other fathers the mistakes they made, and I try to, you know, apply it to myself. I know a very wonderful father of a 3-year-old right now, and I always try to give him advice. Okay, I'm blessed that he takes that advice, but I'm just gonna tell y'all as dads, y'all have to have y'all are the eagles. Eagle can see very far. That's why they sit up high. They see danger coming. Okay, we have to be the eagles. We have to look and see the danger coming. It's on us. All right, we relay that back. I think the mothers also provide a role here where there's a nurturing aspect where they too can say, okay, I see the danger, and they pretty much know what plan to go with. But all we have to do as fathers, if we can identify the threat and use our respect or use our authority at that point to pull this situation like this back. That's my personal opinion. You disagree, get in the comments. I dare you. Officer training is also based upon not wanting to open yourself up to liability. So all this shooting in the leg stuff I keep hearing, nah, y'all don't understand how it works. And there's some legal stuff that has to be dealt with. There's some police unions you got to deal with. We don't ever, you ever notice we have these talks and we never talk about police unions? That tells you how lacking the conversation is. Why Panther and Cage exists, because we're trying to get to the heart of this stuff. We're trying to be real about this stuff, okay? So I'm telling y'all, out of all this stuff we're dealing with, we never talk about police unions. We never talk about the legal liability that the officer can have. We briefly, in Panther and Cage 7.0, when we had our talk with our friend, with our friends Ayana and John Verdi, we briefly talked about the mental health of police officers. We talked about it again when we talked about Clyde Kerr. But we never talk about mental health of law enforcement officers. And that's something we definitely got to do, okay? Because guess what? There's some black law enforcement officers too. Clyde Kerr, go back, look at it. Go back, find it. Just Google it. Go to the Panther and Cage page, type in Clyde Kerr. Find the video that pops up. Check it out. You might learn something. Go to Roland Martin on the YouTube channel, whatever. Go look at his video. Type in Clyde Kerr. They talk about it. You might learn something. Anyways, the training is how the officer is most likely, how the officer is going to respond. You train as you fight, okay? So he's going to train, and they're trained to see if there's a deadly threat. They have to meet it with a deadly, with deadly force, okay? And the law states that. That's why we cover qualified immunity. That's why we cover the use of force so many times on this show. I don't even want to do that again, okay? We got to move. We got to evolve, y'all. So if this is an imminent threat to someone's life, someone has a knife and they're charging at someone, that officer is required to protect that person. So Bryant could have easily killed that girl in the pink, all right? It's forcing the officer Reardon to make a very hard split second. And it wasn't even split second. It was more than a split, because you can see, as I was talking on the video, right as you saw him approach the driveway, it was already occurring before he could even say, anything. And the only thing he could say was get down. He was actually still in the middle of talking, saying what's going on, when the girl was backing up from being stabbed. So, I mean, let's be real, everybody. I mean, let's be real. You got an opinion to this and you oppose it. Get in there. I'm not going to embarrass you, but I am going to highlight this, okay? Get in there. But take note, everybody, that this is the key to this specific situation. Training. Training, everybody, okay? Something must be done about the training. This is where your power lies, okay? First off, we need to understand their training, all right? We have to understand that. I don't think we'll get any further unless we start actually looking at their training. There are some people who do understand their training, but they don't speak out, and that's the thing. So no cowards here on Panther and Cage. We're going to talk about it, all right? Now, although I have to take into consideration the information that was given in the 911 call, if the caller said that the girls assaulting Bryant had a knife, shield, screwdriver, etc., trying to stab Bryant, the officer could have premeditated. If you had found that information early, he would have premeditated that the girl with the knife could have been one of the girls initially assaulting Bryant and used his training to neutralize the threat. So bottom line, the officer knew that narrative is gone. That just got shot. And even if, he knew whatever, and Bryant comes with a knife, whatever, you'd have thought that she was the other girl, because based on the information that was being analyzed and made an assessment on, based off the little bit of information that was provided from the vague 911 call. Police officers' life-saving measures were performed almost immediately after the shots were fired. I did see that. That was true. The officers' life-saving measures included the assessments of injuries, wounds and the CPR. And this is even a switch. They even showed that the officers switched CPR when one got tired. So they did try to resuscitate her, but I believe she died right there on that spot. Like I said, that third video, when you watch the third video body camera, you'll hear her wheezing or whatever, and it's horrible. I get many members of the Black community are probably angry about what I'm saying, and angry about, that this is considered a justified shooting. But the point that everyone is attempting to make here is that it needs to be heard too from law enforcement, that community. I need for y'all to hear that people are tired of lethal force seemingly being used first as the only option to response when it comes to law enforcement. All right. I don't think I need any additional commentary when it came to that. But I don't need to consider any excuse, because we see videos all day of white kids stabbing and running away from police officers. There's one out there, okay? This officer who showed great restraint. We see mass shooters taken into custody, yet little Black girls with no weapons slammed onto the concrete. So let's be real about it. Deputies slamming little girls on concrete in school. I seen a video where there was a white girl, heavyset white girl, beating the crap out of this Indian girl. And I think there was two Indian girls there, and they were just sitting there. She was getting beat down. Nobody say nothing. Black girl comes up from behind, grabs it, and gave it that work. She gave it, yeah, she gave them hands. As soon as that happened, here comes the teacher. Whether the teacher white or black, it don't matter. Here comes the teacher. Now the teacher want to get on the black girl, but you ain't do nothing to the white girl that was beating the Indian girl. So let's talk about that. All right, let's talk about that. It's ridiculous. I see there's a lot of improvement that we can do. There's a lot of improvement. We're hiding behind and not talk about this stuff, whatever. That badge don't look shiny to me when you don't speak up. There are some officers that do speak up. I know some good officers. But those officers that are on the national stage, those officers, whatever, who have the mic, whatever, y'all don't speak up. So no, this justified shooting based on training does not absolve all the calls for demands for justice. Be clear about that. I'm gonna say it again. This justified shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant, justified based on training, does not absolve the calls and demands for justice. So it isn't a celebration because a 16-year-old girl lost her life. All right. So I had to say that to the Blue Lives Matter community out there, because y'all some heartless jokers sometimes, boy. Woo! I'm gonna be real with you. I ain't gonna cut. Yeah. I had a week to watch it, and you know what I'm talking about. Because let's talk about this. The reaction that LeBron James made. Let's quickly talk about this real quick. The reaction that LeBron James made. He made it in a reaction that many of us made. My heart dropped when I heard that. You know, and I was on the phone talking to Cage. So what's happening is you see Black Americans acting with a sort of post-traumatic stress there. You know, like a reaction. Another one killed. Oh my God! Like we got a guilty verdict. 10 minutes later, boom. You know, and it was like a reaction. And it's hard that, we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Y'all, most of the Blue Lives Matter communities out there like, oh, you should always wait for information. You should never jump to conclusions. Really? Really? Judging based on your history. When Black people are reacting that way, sort of like a post-traumatic kind of issue, then it's an issue. And we know how America deals with issues. In fact, since we mentioned PTSD used to be shell shock in the 70s. We did one on mental health, whatever, for military. We showed a little clip of Rambo and him breaking down at the end. And him talking about, I love that line, nothing is over. We talked about that. We talked about the mental health. We talked about that, and mental health for Black men specifically. We talked about those things, and nobody was in that conversation. Nobody weighed in, right? So stop having this opinion telling us to stop jumping conclusions when it's a reaction because of the bad behavior and the bad cops or whatever that are out there killing, and there's no accountability. Y'all, like, it's so hard just to grab a mic and be like, accountability is key. I'm serious. It's just, Mayor Andrew Ginther said in a response, we have a bigger societal question. We have asked and then he asked a very hypocritical question. How do we in a city and a community come together to ensure that our kids never feel the need to resort to violence as a means of solving disputes in order to protect themselves? And I'm gonna tell you how. Stop blowing smoke up the butts of people. Either you're gonna spearhead police reform, create a model that will help the community regain the trust, all right? Because that's what the issue is here, losing trust. If they ever had the trust, all right? If that community ever had that trust, and allow that to work for you. That's pretty much, okay? I know it's hard. I know it sounds hard. I know it sounds like harsh words. I get it. I get it. But if that was your 16-year-old child laying there struggling to breathe, their last breath of the air, Hell, somebody find Tamir Rice's mother and tell me what she feels in an open carry state. Ask Tamir Rice's mother what she thinks about it, and let her be the final word on that, if that's a point of contention. I gotta be straight up. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, because this has to be said, because there are messages out there. And we talked about this last Panther and Cage. There's messages where people are talking and they're not receiving the message. It's a point you have to receive the message. Now, harsh words have to be said here because no one wants to say it. And if no one says it, we'll be same place where we were last year. Like, this is crazy. We haven't grown from 2016 to 2020. And from 2020 to 2021, we're still struggling with a concept that should have been dealt with in the early 90s, right? Go look up how many acts there are, how many bills they're written when it comes to this police reform. Go look up and see how many that is, and then you tell me that I'm wrong. Literally, you tell me that I'm wrong after you go look that up. Just go look up how many, and then tell me, and we'll finish that conversation at another time. Anyway, I'm gonna put the link in and down below the PBS NewsHour interim from the report, whatever, where the interim police chief Michael Woods and Mayor Ginther show these videos and talk about these videos, and it's important to take a look at that, because I know that there's some reporting. A friend of mine sent a video where they were saying that that the media was lying and that they weren't providing the information for the that she had a knife. And then I actually went back and looked at it again, because I remember seeing that, and I looked at it again and saw that, they cut it off. This conservative channel with Brandon Tatum and Sheriff Clark was on there talking, and they had cut it off the scene, and they were being disingenuous, saying that MSNBC didn't report that she had a knife. They did, but they did say that knife was the last words of the first statement. So to me, I felt like it was just disingenuous. So I need y'all to be balanced too when y'all are getting this information. I'll try to bring it to you, but know that there's a lot of trickery out there, and it actually causes me to delay me on doing these kinds of things. And this is why there's so much emphasis put in tonight's show, because this is a long one, I know, but this is an issue. And obviously, we don't know what justice is. You got to ask us now in 2021. There are a number of other reasons why I believe that, they were requesting a federal investigation. And as y'all going to see in these videos I'm about to show, and I'm going to just throw them at y'all so y'all can see. I'm going to mention a few things as we go, and we get through this, because I, don't really like the situation, how this turned out. This was not cool at all.
We need that 24 hours. Are you guys okay? Are officers okay? Officers are okay. I told you to put your hands up. You want to come sit in my car, please? Come sit in my car, okay? Come. Just come. Can you get my phone from my mama? Yeah, I'll get that later. Come sit in my car. Just stay right here. Stay right here. 921, code 1, put me on the 3 en route. She just hit me. I just got here. Babe, it's okay. Calm down. It's okay. Yeah, 200. We need more cars for witnesses. Okay, I got a 10-3 well. I need more cars. Have a seat. Work quick. Okay, let me. 200. Does this feel involved? I do. I understand. April. Have a seat. Have a seat. All right, come sit over here in this car. Ma'am, come sit here. Go ahead, have a seat. I just pulled up here. Let's hurry up, please. This is urgent. Have a seat, please. I'm going to have you sit in that car over there, okay? Oh, my fucking Yeah, I'll get it later. You are a selfish son of a bitch, man, for shooting that girl. Ma'am, come with me. That is crazy. Right there, I'll get it later. Let's go. Shoot a girl. And she ain't coming at you in your life. She fucking came out here. She came out at you with a knife earlier?
No, she just, that's what the police did.
That lady on the floor?
She came after me.
With a knife?
Yeah, so he got her. Can you please get my phone and stuff? Please?
Have a seat for me. Have a seat for me. Yes, we'll get it. We'll get everything.
Please, sir.
Guys, back up, back up.
We don't have one. We're trying to find one now. 200, we got a medic roll.
Medics are rolling, sir. MPD has been advised, they're around.
Get out of here.
That's fine, do we have an L5? Take care of it, ma'am.
You just got out the car and shot. I watched the whole thing. Sir, you're going to have to go over there. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, that's 16. I'm ready to go in right now.
Straight in, please, go straight in.
Watch the whole thing.
Send them in. Send them in.
All right, so let's get right to it. In that video, you saw a lot of lying from these young girls. All right, the one girl, the pink, picked the dog back up. Actually, you see when Ma'Khia Bryant gets shot, the dog actually runs over to her as she runs and then goes and hides in front of the car, sits down on the driveway. Now she wants to be complicit or compliant or whatever. You know, it was sickening. The other girl, the first girl, whatever, that fell back on the concrete when Ma'Khia approached her, not the one that the father kicked in the head. She basically was getting coached by her mother as she was getting put into the vehicle. And she said, "I ain't doing nothing. I just got here." That's a lie. So the thing is the mother's trying to coach her. Here's another thing. Mom is there while she's there trying to fight. Like, take some responsibility as a parent to you showing up at somebody else's house and y'all trying to fight. Like, the whole logic behind that is insane. Then you know the police show up. And then now you're trying to coach your daughter. Where was the coaching before? You see what I'm saying? Like, you see how dumb this is? Girl in the pink just purely lied. They said older girl, so I'm interested. I haven't looked at the report, whatever, the last couple of days. I've been kind of busy dealing with stuff in the community, being a father to my son and whatnot too, and my daughter, but been putting a lot of focus on my son lately. So I haven't looked at the residual information or whatever while surrounding this case. Whether it just got sickening as I start to see more of this stuff I'm about to show you here. But here's what this slide over here to my left. This image that I was just showing you to my left is talking about, where you see that there is, after Ma'Khia Bryant was killed, a group of Columbus police officers were heard shouting "Blue Lives Matter" insipidly on camera.
This is the racist ass bitch that shot this poor fucking girl. I'm not gonna put this shit on camera, but he fucking shot this girl talking about she tried to stab him. The fuck? That's somebody's fucking daughter, bitch.
Crazy. Insult. Especially at this place right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an insult. You sound stupid as fuck, bitch. Fuck.
That flag's a Blue Lives Matter flag.
The fuck, that girl just got shot. Did he just say that? He said Blue Lives Matter. He just said that. Boy, shut the fuck up. He shot a 15-year-old. She was fighting. He said she had a knife. As soon as he got out the car, he shot her 3 or 4 times. So don't listen to the news. All she did, so she tried to stab him. No, the fuck she didn't. Everybody out this bitch seeing the whole thing. So if they should the news try to say her, don't even listen to it, cause no. She ain't trying to stab him or nothing. And I know the news about to try to say that, oh, she tried to stab him. Watch. No. She ain't trying to stab him.
You hear that? All that misinformation there. You did hear the Blue Lives Matter. That was tasteless. So you can see that the rift between this community and the law enforcement in that community, like you can see a problem there. Now you see why they're asking for a federal probe. There's some issues in Ohio. Check out more information.
Have my niece go out like that. You ain't gonna have her go out like that. Either you report the truth or don't report nothing. Okay? She was a good kid. She was loving. Yeah, she had issues, but that's okay. All of us go through shit. She's a child. You know what? She was 15 motherfucking years old. She deserved to die like a dog on the street. Okay? Ain't gonna have my niece.
In the same sense, you can hear those that plea and that cry. There's a lot of information there, that a lot of things, and I think she was emotional and she wasn't accurate. And I say that because I saw this.
I was on the ground. Shot her 4 times. Okay? Yeah, she had a knife in her hand, but it was way before they shot her. She had already dropped the knife. She's the one, her and her sister, who called the police. Because some older kids that live in that house were abusing them. Okay? So they're the ones that called the police. The police roll up and shoot Huggies 4 times, not once, not twice, not even 3 times.
Tell the truth.
But 4 times.
All right, let me go ahead and talk about this. The grouping of shots. There's something called shot group. You also shooting her 4 times. That officer has that discretion to be able to utilize, his firearm to neutralize a threat, and he may feel that he needs to do that. But that's kind of like where we needed the state to step in. Phil Archer to step in and ask about the Deputy Lafayette Santiago, his use of every bullet for the Angelo Cruz and Sincere Pierce shooting, and apparently he's that last final bullet that's on the side that kills Sincere Pierce, they're not counting as excessive force, which is wrong. But yeah, so when it comes to shot groups, sometimes they train like that. They train to put 2 to 3, and if you react in less than a second, you had a decision to make. So, him putting the 4 in there or whatever, it wasn't like he shot and stopped, so understand it's the way that he trains, it's the way that law enforcement trains. I'm not saying absolving them from anything or whatever, other than the fact that, he acted within the training that they, utilized there. And so that's an issue that needs to be taken up. The civil rights activists should be over all of this all day. They should be on this, even though this would be considered a justified based on training. This would be a key factor for them to change. And I'm tired of civil rights leaders, whatever, bouncing and jumping beyond what needs to be taken care of. It's like a waste of time. Talk about the real issues that cause these things. Find a solution to it. Stop kicking this can down the road. There's a discussion. I don't know if I should show it, but it's a discussion between the Breakfast Club. Actually, I'm not even sure it. This is with them talking about some of the stuff we just been talking about. And Charlemagne, the guy, was basically saying that he could have shot him in the leg, etc., etc. DJ Envy was more being reasonable about it in regards to the training and whatnot. So I'll probably show that on another show, but I'm not going to show it right now. just because I want to just kill that time with that. Because we've been discussing this already. I've been saying this stuff already, so I don't want to sound redundant. I was trying to put this together like where it's seamless or whatever, but there's a lot going on this week, whatnot. There's a lot that's been going on this week. So, but judging and looking at that, we can also see here. You saw this already, the misinformation here. To my left, you see an image of the snapshot of the police body camera that was worn by Officer Reardon, which is the video being played back on a computer system just prior to the official police body camera video being released to the public. Now, the image shows the 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant charging another young woman with a knife clearly in her hand that appears to be in her right hand, in full swing as it appears she's about to assault the young woman wearing pink. We've already talked in depth about the varying possibilities or whatever that is controversial police shooting that was involved, unfortunately, it forces us to speculate on it. I mean, I could have said, we could have talked about this. You know, in life, she would have put a knife in that girl's neck, could have been done. So in some ways, knives are worse than guns. So that's something we have to understand. And I hope the community pays attention to this. I really do. Don't just take anger to the situation. Actually look at this and understand or whatever. You don't put yourself in a position, all right, not in that position. You standing there with this officer who knows nothing. It's already difficult enough dealing with law enforcement officers and sometimes their perspectives. I know I done dealt with racism, clearly I've dealt with it. Y'all don't even know my story. Trust me, I done dealt with it plenty of times here, especially here in Brevard County. But you got to at least give them a chance or whatever to get the information when they get on the scene. Don't be doing anything dumb. And this was dumb because it was a young girl who wasn't thinking about it, and they see life. They don't see and understand life. There's an issue with that. In a Facebook post on pugilism and politics, the following message stated, read, law enforcement's response to the insurrection was to fire one shot as thousands of armed men and women mostly stormed the Capitol to get to take over a government of over 300 million people. Think about that. They routinely apprehend men who commit mass murders. They're willing to try every option before using deadly force in some situations. So miss me when it comes to little girls with a knife. If you're black and you're trying to hold children and non-professionals accountable after witnessing actual professionals, law enforcement turn their eyes to murder and even an attempted coup, you are a huge part of the problem. You twist yourself into a pretzel trying to be objective. What is wrong with you? The second photo, you can see the Witnessing America, the cops playing tug of war with the insurrectionists. And then the image says if those were black folks, guns would have been ablaze. That's the only reality that would have been taken into account. And I gotta agree with that. I gotta agree with that because the first thing he says is he had a knife, he had a gun. It's always that, Yet, now the post is somewhat juvenile in its vernacular. But after witnessing the police officers practice amazing restraint, like that officer that got chased down by that young white male I mentioned earlier, who stabbed the officer and was able to run away, this message's delivery is on point. It calls into question what the difference that allows these police officers to practice such tolerance and amazing patience when dealing with similar situations that where suspects appear to be of the white race. You can have a black man that may have a knife in his hand walking away and not being a threat, and the officer is justified by shooting him 7 times in the back. Jacob Blake was walking away, and the officer pulled his firearms and shot 7 times in his back. The officer had mentioned earlier about him chasing down the kid. He's chasing down and deployed his taser. So he's even after stab, he still didn't use a deadly force. You see what I'm saying? Now I know that each department is different. I know that. This is we talk about training, a generic form of training across the board. And don't say that can't be done because y'all trained on Black Lives Matter with misinformation with this 176-page document just a couple of months ago. Try again. It's truly a problem because no matter how similar the circumstances, when a person of color seems to be the suspect, the circumstances seem to turn out the same way when the suspect is white. So we got to explore that for a minute, right? This is Ashley Babbitt. The portion of the last post that highlighted law enforcement's response to the insurrection was to fire one shot as thousands of armed men and women mostly stormed the Capitol was a direct reference to Ashley Babbitt, the California native who was shot, and she was attempting to crawl through the Senator's Hall door during the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol. An update on that situation was that the Department of Justice announced that closure of that investigation with a statement and said the official determined that there was insufficient evidence to support criminal prosecution. All right. Justice Department's announcement ensures that the officer who shot Mrs. Babbitt will not be prosecuted, and the man responsible for settling into action the events that resulted in the officer's need to fire will escape criminal accountability. Just let that sit there for a second. It mentioned police routinely apprehending men who commit mass murders, and we saw this in a recent mass shooter, Ahmed Alisa, the 21-year-old Colorado King Supers mass shooter who on March the 22nd murdered 10 people, including Officer Eric Talley, including a police officer. It stated that the law enforcement was willing to try every option before using deadly force in some situations. That's not a lie. As you can see, you see him there walking, shot in the leg and walking. It's like it was asking about the Bryant situation, right? You can see that law enforcement is, as it said, they're willing to try to use every option before deadly force. That's not a lie. We covered this in this mass shooting, and we pointed this out. We pointed this fact out. We were able that he was able to walk away, from the scene of the crime. That's from a Freestyle 6 photo. Okay, so that was weeks before this Ma'Khia Bryant situation. So don't say that this was just, this is just I'm not trying to create no point here. I'm just being objective. I explored what that other post stated, and look what I found. You don't have to go far. You go back, what, 2 or 3 weeks? The words taken into custody appears to be a glaring indicator of privilege. And I can't put this in any way. This is just some sort of bias. But the facts are the facts, all right? And they, like Willie Taylor say, they don't care about your feelings. I will say this before you move on to the next point. And this is something that somebody can jump in here and say it. But see, people don't. I got a conversation, so I got to have it with myself. So here's this. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna say this. All right, law enforcement officers that took Elisa over here. They took them into custody. They were reported to be SWAT police officers. Okay, SWAT is Special Weapons and Tactics, and may have played a huge factor in law enforcement's ability to take Elisa into custody. Now I know that a lot of people are gonna be upset about that, but the fact is that they were not normal, feet to the beat police officers, right? Right? They're the ones that are on patrol dealing with the, a special situation, right? Okay, so let's take that. Let's consider that, right? Hope that no one gets upset about this point I'm about to make, but hey, if it takes a team of police officers that have special weapons and tactics to take into custody a mass shooter, then it is the answer that we've been searching for. We talk about police training, and we talk about police training and what it is to be on the line, and we're talking about Ma'Khia Bryant and everything. We clearly can see that there are law enforcement officials who have long dismissed the request for training reform, and they have been trying to avoid the truth. And that you can see that this is that in that specific case, you can see that's the answer. Now you tell me now, if you think that this just happened to be a case of a coincidence, you tell me. All right. Robert Aaron Long. Give you Exhibit C. Robert Aaron Long was responsible for the mid-March Atlanta spa shootings where he attempted to execute Asian women before heading to Florida to conduct who knows what kind of damage. Just before Georgia State Trooper was able to take him into custody alive. Long was in possession of a 9mm firearm and at the time of his capture. And he was in a vehicle. Okay? And for those who are living in here in Brevard County who are currently questioning the shooting of 2 teenagers in Cocoa, Long was in possession of a weapon and did not stop for law enforcement officers either, but somehow he was taken into custody alive. So we see incidents like this play out again and again in the media, in their own backyard, and we do not have, we can't buy the narrative that you tend to put out, when it comes to the, to in any format that you do, you try. That whether it's in a liberal format or a conservative format, that, the media is trying to divide us. We ain't accepting that. That ain't the media. That ain't the media. Okay? Tucker Carlson is talking about negative narratives. He over there creating negative narratives. He running with it. But he didn't do this pit stop to pull Robert Aaron Long over. So it ain't the media. It's in the age-old cop-out of pointing the finger instead of joining the other community in arms and actually talking about what can be done to take this measure to make sure this kind of tragedy no longer impacts the actual victimized community. I'm not saying that there's nothing that can be done in those communities. I'm just saying that people in charge of getting things done are dropping the ball because they're not listening to comprehend. Understand the message. Just talked about that last week. I want to say that this inequality is found directly on the edge of the U.S. justice system, has had a negative impact upon the beliefs of African Americans. Okay, and it has a negative impact on our convictions of people of color, and it disproportionately affects the values of all American citizens, including those who have fought and made significant sacrifices to the ideal of freedom. I'll say it again. All right. It disproportionately affects the values of all American citizens, including those citizens who have fought and made significant sacrifices to the ideal of freedom. Therefore, people kneel at the playing of the national anthem and displaying of the United States flag, because this standard of liberty that we just tried to talk about earlier does not seem to apply. It does not seem like there's justice for all. Now, try to wrap this up in the next 15. On Monday, April 12th, a 17-year-old Austin East Magnet School student in Knoxville, Tennessee, identified as Anthony J. Thompson Jr., was shot and killed by a Knoxville, Tennessee police officer named Jonathan Clayball. Law enforcement officers from multiple departments were called to the school at about 3:15 p.m. after a report of a male possibly armed with a gun brought it inside the Austin East Magnet High School in East Knoxville. The police reported that the male identified was Thompson. Regina Perkins, the mother of Thompson's girlfriend, Alexa Page, seen here, said that Thompson and her daughter, a junior, had dated for 9 months, and that Alexis Page here called her mother and Perkins she called her mother from an assistant principal's phone earlier that day, saying that she was upset and wanted to leave school early. Perkins said that she allowed Page to sign out and go home, which is where Page indicated that she and Thompson had gotten to a scuffle during an argument. Perkins then called the police, saying that Thompson had a gun.
Now, at this point, we're going to show you the recorded video of the shooting that happened inside the bathroom. Investigators say the face-to-face confrontation between those officers and 17-year-old Anthony Thompson Jr. lasted 11 seconds. A warning, the video we're about to show you is graphic. Here's Sean Becker.
This police body cam video is from the perspective of the officer who will fire the fatal shot that killed a teenager inside this school bathroom.
The beginning of the day and what really transpired at Austin East and caused Anthony Thompson to lose his life.
The lead prosecutor laid out the case for why she declared the actions of that officer who fired 2 shots reasonable and justified under the circumstances following a 9-day investigation.
This is an 11-second incident, but it's going to take us 110 seconds to get through it.
In a methodical retelling of those 11 seconds, the DA slows down the video, pausing it at key moments.
Hey, Anthony, how you doing, man?
From the start of the confrontation, officers are asking 17-year-old Anthony Thompson Jr. to show his hands.
Get your hands out of your pocket.
In slow motion, that student stands up in the stall. The DA points to his right arm, still in the front pouch pocket of his jacket. And seconds later, the prosecutor says the video reveals a gun in the grips of that young man who fires, narrowly missing one officer. After that first shot, Officer Jonathan Claybo draws and fires his gun, hitting the student in the upper chest. He tumbles to the floor with the school resource officer, and worried that student is about to shoot again, Officer Claybo fires a second shot at the suspect, but strikes his fellow officer in the leg. Again, this confrontation in a school bathroom between an armed student and 4 police officers turns deadly over the course of 11 seconds.
After Thompson is shot, the other student in the bathroom begs officers to help him. The medical examiner noted the fatal shot was devastating, striking his lungs and heart. The DA says officers started rendering aid within about 2 minutes. They call for an ambulance and a school nurse. The DA says the nurse arrived and started caring for Thompson at 3:15, 4.5 minutes after the shooting. Based on the evidence collected over the past 2 weeks and the body camera footage, the DA says the shooting of Thompson was justified because the officers believe they were in immediate danger. And that is why they will not face any charges, according to the DA.
After officers Lieutenant Stanley Cash, Officer Jonathan Claybaugh, Officer Adam Wilson, and Officer Brian Baldwin, 4 police officers entered the restroom at the school. They found Thompson sitting inside one of the stalls with the door open. They coerced him out. Upon both the officers, and I failed to identify which 2 officers actually were grabbing on him, but they both grabbed Thompson's arms in what may have been their attempt to search Thompson. He began Thompson began reaching back into his front jacket pocket, and struggle with the police ensued. During that struggle, the student's gun was fired. It's the official word that was said. It isn't clear Thompson was trying to aim the firearm that was allegedly in the possession at that one of the officers that was involved in the struggle. But Officer Jonathan Claybaugh stood back from Thompson, aimed center mass, and fired 1 round into the upper chest of Thompson. As Thompson fell forward, the school's resource officer fell on top of Thompson, and that is when Officer Jonathan Claybaugh took another shot, but instead of striking Thompson, he struck Officer Adam Wilson in the right leg. Now, see what I'm talking about, that use of force, that second shot? Question. But you'll see the DA try to, explain this. And this is what I don't like about the narrative and why the community is upset. But anyways, Knox County District Attorney General Charmaine Allen, I think it's Charmaine Allen, said that she would not charge Officer Jonathan Claybaugh, who fired the shot and killed Thompson, further claiming that this was a self-defense case. And then Allen said that in a 2-hour news conference, at the end of the day, we found that the shooting by Officer Claybaugh was justified.
This is Claybaugh's camera, Claybaugh's perspective. this is the first time that when Clabo says that Anthony turns, he says he can see the gun poking out of the front of his pocket, and this on the video is not so great right here, but you can see what Officer Clabo is describing. Officer Clabo described it as a square end of a barrel and said he could see the sight even on top of the end of the barrel. This pouch pocket is a through kind of kangaroo pouch pocket, and if you noticed when Anthony Thompson was sitting on the toilet when they first came in, he was on the phone, he had no hands in his pocket, he put a hand in his pocket, he took it back out, but when he got up to address the officers, he put both hands in his pocket. That's when they began to yell at him to get his hands out of his pocket. Since that time, he's kept his right hand in his pocket. So his right hand is in the pocket over here, and this is Officer Baldwin pulling his left hand back. So clearly his left hand is in the control of this officer, but it's his right hand that these officers are struggling with as Clabo sees what he perceives as the gun pointed at him through the pouch pocket. Okay, he's just fired a shot. Can you go back just a little? When he fires the shot through the pouch pocket, the gun is still in the pouch. We're going to show you how the gun traveled through the jacket. But as that gun fires, you can tell that this is where Officer Baldwin is standing. He's standing about 6 inches from the stall door. So there's about a 6-inch gap right here between him and the door. And when that gun fires, it goes between him and that door. There's a trash can sitting right here. Prior to this shot, there's no hole in the trash can. After this shot is fired, there is a hole in the trash can. We'll look at that in a minute. But the statement of Officer Baldwin is that when that gun was fired, he felt the concussion of the gun and thought he had been hit in the leg.
All right, so that looks pretty justified up until that point, right? A lot of stuff is still questionable. Just showing you that. Here's where it gets controversial.
As soon as that shot's fired, that is when Officer Baldwin lets go of Anthony Thompson's arm and starts to retreat and falls back that way. And so Officer Clabo in his statement said when that shot happened, Officer Baldwin left his field of view. He heard the shot. He knew that had been fired. He was tunnel vision. Officer Baldwin leaves. He thinks that Officer Baldwin has been hit at that time because Officer Baldwin is falling backwards. Okay. See the gun here coming out of the pouch. Obviously they're struggling over the gun throughout this entire encounter. Once his left hand is free, his left hand comes back down into the pouch, and you'll see that that gun is pointed this way, and then again at Officer Cash. And you have to watch to see the body cant to the left, because you'll remember that's why Officer Clabo said he shot the second time. He said that it was his belief. They all their statements are the same in that they all knew and believed that Anthony Thompson had a gun in his pouch pocket. They all saw it. They all believed they were wrestling for the gun to try to get it away from him. And none of the officers saw the gun come out of his pocket. We're going to show it come out of his pocket and where it ends up. But through this fight, it happened once again in 11 seconds. None of the officers ever realized his gun was gone. They were still fighting. When he goes down, Officer Clabo says that he assumed and that Anthony Thompson still had the gun in the pouch. And so when he was canting, when his legs cant to the left, his belief was that Wilson was right behind him and he was canting with that gun still in his pocket to try to shoot Wilson, who was right behind him. So that's Clabo. When you slow it down and you look at it in relation to what Clabo perceived, you have to determine whether or not it's reasonable for Clabo, Officer Clabo, to have believed all the things that he says he believed.
A lot of issues with that. The whole canting and all this stuff, whatever, a lot of speculation and everything. The officer put the gun directly to his chest or whatever and shot. The second shot that he took, I felt like the officer was negligent because at that point he didn't have a clear shot. No matter what training you are in, you will make sure that you have a clear shot. In that kind of situation, you have a clear shot. I know he was probably thinking that he was saving somebody's life, whatever. I don't even know if he fell to the ground with the gun. You know, like is that issue. If the other officer fell to the ground or whatever, don't shoot the other officer. I mean, geez, come on, man. There's just issues, whatever. I saw no deployment of tasers. Nobody had a taser out, and y'all had to report this person potentially had a gun. And then the mom with this calling or whatever. Like, really, lady? Really? Call his parents. Get his parents to come there to de-escalate that. Get that little boy, get that gun out of the little boy's hand. All this happened with another student in the stall, which they didn't show you in that video, I don't think. All this happened with another little boy in the stall. The boy was like asking him that he was bleeding out to get him to render medical aid, and he didn't render medical aid. So it's a lot of controversy, whatever. And I still got to actually look at this, whatever. But you know, this is a lot. It's a lot. But I do think this is just that shot. The first shot was justified. That second shot was shot the other officer. That makes that officer negligent, in my opinion. Okay. Other issue though here, I think it's dealing with parenting here, because here's this situation or whatever where there's some dealing with what we find is Regina's Regina's regret. Okay. Now, quite a bit of controversy in this case too, as the initial reports among the community cited that the police lied and said that Thompson had a gun in the middle school and was shot to death and was in a confrontation with officers in the bathroom. It was not clear why it was believed that the initial report was later found out to be not true. But you know, my only guess would be that there was a lack of transparency in regard to the entire situation. So social media posting, which was one of the earliest to capture the vague details regarding the incident, expressed an opinion that this is insane. Nothing about this is justified. First off, they lied and tried to cover up the truth about what initially happened. Not to mention that they never tried to render aid to the kid. Instead, they left him dying in handcuffs while the other students, whatever, begged and pleaded for them to help this boy. It wasn't until they released the video. It wasn't until they had to release the video they had to change their story. Where was the Justice Department? We are sick and tired of killing of our children. Time and time again, they can go shoot up the schools, churches, and everyone else, and yet they are apprehended alive. There's something to it. Getting around to Regina's regret. Regina Perkins, the mother of Alexis Page, said that she now wishes that she had never called the police. Now, I wanted to show a video, but it was too beefy and the megabytes or whatever, and I wasn't able to get it in there. I'm not going to try to do a share file function, of course, right now. I'm going to try to wrap this up because the point I think is clear. There's just so much going on in this situation that we could have handled this with more concern for protection of these teenagers, is what she said, is what Regina said. You have to look at what's been said over, I'm saying we should look at over what has been said forever about police brutality and recognize that this has been a problem in Americans, in America, who a problem for African Americans since the inception of slave patrols. And that's just a fact. But over the course of the live streams that we've talked about, we talked about the Green Book, we talked about sundown towns, we talked about vigilante frontier justice mobs mysteriously taking Black people from the custody of law enforcement and then lynching them before due process was ever served. We talked about racial profiling. We talked about qualified immunity and the Ku Klux Klan Act. We talked about all these topics just to reveal to the Brevard County Panther and Cage audience there's systemic racism influencing the way that we police, the way that we imprison, the way that we adjudicate and govern. Okay? Now, go back real quick. I want y'all to see this photo on this slide, all right? Here's another level of this too. That this directly refers to the way that parents choose how to guide our children, whether it be understanding the nature of the world right now and how we're trying to plead with an entity that is expressed that it believes in pulling the trigger is the end-all be-all method of policing in America, even when there are times when one should summon more courage. That wielding a knife towards another person does deem you as a deadly threat as per their training, or that just how you present yourself when you're navigating this new experience that we adults call life. I know that I might have ruffled some feathers saying all that, but it just needs to be said, okay? I will say that we need to look at the way we are portrayed when making a justification and breaking up our lives, and justification at you know, we're giving up our lives to those who support law, right? So we got to look at that, all right? And I say that you know, this portrayal is primarily self-inflicted when it comes to our youth. Look at this picture here on this slide. The way that we navigate through life as if there is no consequences. We allow them to do that. We allow them to do that. We allow them to do dumb stuff like this, like posting this stuff on social media. I don't care at this point. This is where you grab that little boy, tear that behind him. You got to. Yes, I said it. All right? Because it's better he get a butt whooping from his daddy or a butt whooping from his mama than a bullet from a police officer. The bullet from a police officer does a lot to the community. It does a lot for trust. And we got these police officers that now have to put on their agenda, whatever, where they got to figure out, how do I bridge the gap in this community? All because of a bullet. Everybody in the community got to work together on this issue. And everybody got to stop kicking the can down the road. Blue Lives Matter got to stop screaming it's Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter got to stop screaming it's only Blue Lives Matter. We do have to also step up to the plate on certain issues and whatnot. And I'm not saying that we're not stepping up to the plate on those issues. I'm just saying that's what we have to do. When it comes to us, there's a lot that we can do, but we have to fight some other things on the outside. I had one girl try to tell me some stuff about how that they put Black people in the community to kill each other or whatever, and it's not working. So they, you know, this is why they're doing what they're doing. And the thing is, she was like, she had this whole thing about how we should be, you know, anti-abortion or whatever. I'm like, hold on, you talking about saving these babies or whatever, and anti-abortion or whatever. Well, you got to put these fathers back in their role in their household, right? You can't put the fathers in the role because they're being criminalized, they're being demonized. So there's issues and there's steps that take place. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Not saying that we don't. I'm just saying that those are part of the steps. And I'm saying it so that they can hear it too and understand, oh, okay, they are working on this. Because for some reason they swear up and down we're not working on stuff. Okay? For some reason they swear up and down we're not working on stuff. You don't see it because you got your news feed tuned to Fox so much that you can't see all the other stuff going on. Anyways, getting back to talking about to my Black community. That this belief that the way these kids like this navigate through life, or whatever, like there's no consequences. It might be a direct reflection of the way we tell our kids that they can do and be anything. I mean, that's for real, all right? Those words are taken to heart by these kids, whatever, who are in those developmental stages. Because, you know, if you tell a kid that from 3 to 6 years old, they really believe they can do anything. They'll jump off a roof. They really believe it. And that's what we gotta understand. Like, are we doing this? We really gotta look at our stuff and really, you know, deal with it. Kevin Samuels is talking to women or whatever that are in their late 40s or whatever, that's getting, not the late 40s, but early 40s, whatever, it's getting close there, or late 30s, I think. And he's talking about like the way they live life, not saying he's right or wrong, which I don't think he's wrong, but you know, not saying he's right or wrong, just saying he's talking to them like to reevaluate what they're doing. If he's got them reevaluate themselves, shouldn't we as fathers and parents, shouldn't we reevaluate how we're raising our kids and what's affecting and what's impacting them? Like, I mean, because if you tell a child they can do anything, that means that they can post pictures like this on the internet and still pick up things by age 27 and become a millionaire. I'm not saying that that's not possible. Well, what I'm saying is that you might be dealing with a situation where the opportunities are left up to chance, right? And that, you know, those opportunities don't come around often. But a child, if you tell a child that, they grow up to be this little 16, 17-year-old kid like this or whatnot, and they'll believe that those chances will come around as much as they like because they can do anything, okay? Especially my religious people, I can do all things through Christ. Really pay attention to what you say, how you say it, when you say it. I think there's a video of somebody telling people like, when it's like, when parents used to tell us, well, just go to school, we'll be okay. And you realize how antiquated that message is. Yeah, that's something that we need to look at. This is my call to other parents, all right? And it's just thick. And I know that it's controversial, and I know that, you know, there's going to be a lot of people, but y'all have to eat this tonight, right? I'm sorry. Sorry we went 3 hours, but I'm sorry. I'm not saying that we shouldn't encourage our kids, but what I'm saying is that we need to know where to draw the line from encouragement and gaslight, right? Because the reality is that when an officer is standing in front of you and a weapon is pointed, every moment that was meaningful and every regret simultaneously inserts itself into the conscious mind of that child. And it is an experience that is indescribable, aside from the words that I thought that this was the end. Now, think about this. If you really listen to what to that, you would understand that it's impossible for someone to know when a particular moment is the end, when they haven't the ability to stand back in a godlike position and look at the totality of their life in the form of a timeline, and then accurately point out and be like, yeah, that's it, that's the end. But somehow those words seem to sum it up. Somehow. If you disagree, I ask you to go talk to some kid who has had a gun pointed at him. Then I'd like for you to come back to the show and tell me that you like, you know, that you'd like to share that. I'll send you a link. You might be a guest on the show. That you pop in and tell me how unequivocally wrong I am. But getting back to Anthony Thompson's shooting, I'm saying that the entire community could have handled this better. Even though law enforcement took over 9 days to get the information to the parties that are involved or release the body cam footage in the call for transparency, they were all steps from all sides that could have been taken to change the situation. And I personally believe Regina Perkins could have contacted Anthony Thompson's parents if they were even in the picture. I don't know. So this is, you know, a stretch, but you know, they if they were concerned and involved in his life, considering that, you know, that he had an illegal possession of a firearm, the 17-year-old was way too young to be stepping out like that. And if his parents were active in his life, they may be able to talk to Anthony about having a firearm in school. And they, you know, Anthony could have turned it over, you know, if he had respect to those parents. So, I mean, that could have de-escalated the situation there. That could have ended the whole situation and potentially ended it differently. All right. But to become frustrated because of dating roles of your teenage children and to call the police with the overall message that Anthony has a gun is a bit irresponsible. When we need to understand that black males are seen as threats, even when they're unarmed. And I'm saying this very harshly only because I know that we should know better. It's obvious that she's been dealing with African-American males in her dating life, and that puts her in the realm of understanding that police produces, that the police, whatever, produces unnecessary police interaction. And when you do that, it often ends up with a black man's life being taken. Like, I don't understand how she doesn't understand that. 3 times as much. 3 times as much if it was a white person. And that's I don't even like statistics. And y'all know I hate statistics. I mean, you know, so that one is for all the people who love to throw statistics out there and attempt to, like I said, qualify what has been quantified. We'll check to see what see where we need to go from here. I think I'm just gonna wrap this up right now. All right, there we go. Get this better real quick. All right, understanding that these experiences are shaping the way we interact with each other in the future. I want to pose this question to y'all again. Knowing that the justice system presents and promotes itself to be thought of in a way of systemically protecting people from being killed, cheated, and discriminated against, does this disparity affecting African Americans and people of color found in the United States justice system particularly influence our values regarding the United States of America? We can see that, you know, an attempt to do anything and still face discrimination. Can be an accomplished African American actress and still feel like you're hustling for your work. I'm not talking about the internal drive that pushes us forward. I'm talking about the leaping over obstacles that are in the way of us living what would be considered to be a normal American experience. You can be actively serving your country and you're told to get ready to ride the lightning or tricked into touching a firearm after it's laid in the seat before you get back into your vehicle. You could be the United States president and they blame you for starting racism just because you're Black. They will omit the 400 years of slavery, 400 plus years of slavery, legacy of slavery, and then tell you that racism died the moment that Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the 1964 Civil Rights Act, then blame Barack Obama for training race soldiers as a sole actor in inciting race war. You could be politically educated. You could have politically educated the people in the community after coming home from serving in the United States Army and be shot in your back or your front porch and have your name stricken from the history books. It's part of the Black experience in America. You could be the first martyr of the modern civil rights movement and bring the Black population an idea of block voting, and somehow the world has yet to truly know your name, Eric T. Moore. You could be an athlete that has a household name, be brought up in a conversation for greatest of all time, and still have some ignorant person spray paint the N-word on your residence. You could be the greatest boxer of all time, and they want to award you your gold medal because of your personal spiritual stance on one of America's pastimes. And I'm not talking about baseball, y'all. I'm talking about the military-industrial complex, but y'all are not ready for that conversation. I find that interesting that I'm going to draw the two parallels between LeBron James and how they're treating LeBron James and saying that they love Muhammad Ali back in the 60s. That's another disingenuous effort to hide your racism, all right? It's absolutely silly for you to think that we can't see when you open your mouths and pull money together just to hate on LeBron James, that what that shows is no matter how excellent you are, you will always be hated by the basis of the amount of excess melanin that you hold in your body. The same people that are telling LeBron James to shut up and dribble would have told Muhammad Ali to shut up and box. Think about that. Nah. Let me take that back. Because they didn't like Muhammad Ali because not only did he stand against the status quo, but he was quiet when he did it. And I don't think anybody could whoop his tail, so that's why they probably didn't like Muhammad Ali. But yeah, you still would have probably told him to shut up and box until he turned and looked at you. You probably would have took off and ran, cowards. Anyways, I'm saying that to let my audience know that the Black experience in America is unique, and that it has come to time where it's no longer to be accepted and to tell us to shut up and dribble or stop making babies or pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps and tell us that we just need to work harder. In an effort to appropriately deal with the history of our nation, to move forward with more meaningful and progressive conversations that doesn't deny American racist institutions having an impact on how we deal with each other in society today, or to simply come together at a celebration or a function without code switching, we're going to continue to have these conversations here on Panther Cage. All right? We're going to continue to meet the members of our community to find suitable, tangible solutions to deal with these issues that are hurting America. Accountability and transparency are critical, and it's critical in maintaining the public's faith in the system. Here on Panther Cage, we are going to be fighting that negative national discretion. We're going to be fighting the negative national discretion that's influenced bias in the criminal justice system. We're going to continue to do that, even if it means finding a way to implement training to yield some results, the same results for African Americans and people of color, just as it does for white Americans. Now, oh, that was strange. I'd like to take this moment to finally say congratulations to Willie Taylor of Fighting Edge, located in Sycamore in Titusville, on Sycamore Street in Titusville. I'd like to congratulate Willie Taylor. Congratulations, Willie, on his successful graduation from the police academy. And I want to pray for him on his future efforts to help deal with the situations here in Brevard County, Florida. We wish and pray safety upon you as you step out into this new venture. We pray that we see positive results in the efforts that you're doing to bridge the gaps within the community. And we thank you. And I personally thank you for this shirt. That's where the shirt came from, everybody. I personally thank you for the shirt, which I'm wearing tonight. I just want to say thank you. We'll try to see if we can get you on the show to talk about some things in the future. We got to get some things laid, some groundwork, some things laid, as groundwork. So, yeah, thank you. And congratulations on your graduation from Police Academy. Sorry, I waited till late to do that, but we had to get right into this issue because I knew it was going to be a long one. I'm getting tired of some of these conversations, so I'm trying to push forward and get this stuff out so that we can start addressing things and you not get lost in this conversation, audience. So when I say cognitive dissonance, that's all. I don't have to take 2 slides to explain it to you now. I just say cognitive dissonance, and you guys understand it. So when we start talking and I start talking about a paradigm shift, then you'll understand it. So I want y'all to be a part of that conversation, and that's why these are necessary. So I apologize for the length, but sometimes we need to have these. Okay, we don't have these at the town halls, and I'm tired of going to town halls and nobody passing me that mic. I'm tired of my same old questions. So Brevard, 2021, your time is up. We ain't gonna be dealing with all that no more. And I want to hear all these political, no, because we kicked that can down the road. I didn't say anything then, but we kicked that can down the road. It ain't gonna happen again. I'm not gonna sit there and let y'all continue to ask the same questions. Y'all better start paying attention. This has been Panther and Cage. I'm your host, Panther. I'm Anthony, your host, Anthony, but known as Panther for the purposes of educating and bringing awareness to the Brevard County community. And any other community that's morally responsible for social equity, justice, and equality out there. But we wish you here at Panther Cage, we wish you love, peace. May the Most High guide your path.